Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Overwatch comes to Marvel. Chapter 21. Everyone in the United States, and even have a certain influence in the world. One is Luo Ning, the CEO of Overwatch Films, and the other is the world-famous superhero, Soldier 76. A few days ago, there were news reports that Soldier 76 not only exists in the movie, but also in the real world, and there is also a video of reporters interviewing Soldier 76. In the terrorist attack on Bright Star, Soldier 76 played a decisive role. He single-handedly shot and killed all the mercenaries in the Bowen Hall. Otherwise, the consequences would be disastrous, and hundreds of filmmakers might be arrested. Seeing Soldier 76 in person now feels unreal. Do the super soldiers described in the movie really exist? The inch-cut man was the first to come back to his senses, and asked suspiciously, "Mr. Luo Ning?" Soldier 76. Luo Ning put down his hands and stretched out his right hand. "Hello, I'm Luo Ning. Those mercenaries said that they are being targeted here, and that person should be the famous Falcon, Special Forces, right? Even he, who never leaves home, has heard of the Falcon Special Forces. The news seems to have a soft spot for them, and they often broadcast their glorious deeds of taking out terrorists' lairs." The inch-cut man shook his hand, nodded and said, "That's right, I'm the captain of Falcon, codenamed Lightning. Sir, can you tell me what happened here? I was captured by mercenaries. As for why, I don't know. Maybe they have a special hobby for filmmakers, so they attacked Bright Star, intending to capture all famous filmmakers. Finally, Soldier 76 came and I rescued and blew up the stronghold by the way," Luo Ning said unhurriedly. "Soldier 76, this is the third time you have saved me, and I would like to express my sincere thanks to you." He nodded slightly to Thomas. Thomas raised a smug smile. "This feeling is what he wants, it feels better. Fighting crime is my mission in this world. Where there is crime, there is me. I am the embodiment of justice, the terminator of evil." Well, here we go again. Luo Ning knew that once Thomas put on the uniform of Soldier 76, the soul of Chuer in his body would burn again, burning more and more. When Captain Falcon heard this for the first time, he found it quite novel. Super soldiers are indeed different from ordinary soldiers like them. This difference is not only manifested in their bodies, but also in their minds. Other special forces are also extremely admired, admiring them all, but superheroes are different, they all speak with such depth. In today's world, there are not many people who can defeat mercenary gangs on their own. Soldier 76 counts as one, Iron Man counts as one, and both of them are sharp weapons for punishing crimes, making those terrorists frightened. Captain Falcon sees Thomas covered in bullet holes, dispelling his last doubts. It seemed that they were right. The purpose of the mercenary group was to capture the filmmaker, and Luo Ning was undoubtedly the most prominent one among the filmmakers. After the failure of the Bright Star operation, he was captured. Soldier 76 has a keen sense of illegal and criminal activities, so he came to rescue him in time and blow up the stronghold by the way. With this explanation, everything will be logical. But who hired them? There must be someone behind the scenes, right? The mercenary group can't do meaningless things. Captain Falcon asked. Luo Ning suddenly thought of something. "Come with me." Behind a piece of iron sheet meters away from the ruins, lay a man wearing bright red underpants. That was McCarran, the mercenary that Ronan had disguised as. The effect of the anesthesia has not faded, and she is still in a coma. Thomas reacted quickly, and immediately said, "This is the guy at the door. I mixed him in after he was anesthetized, just to leave a life alive for interrogation afterwards. Since you are here, let him be handed over to you. In terms of interrogation, you are more professional than me." Captain Falcon nodded, and ordered his two subordinates to take the mercenary back to the helicopter, and ask them to take some pictures of the scene. "If you don't mind, let's take a photo together. My subordinates are all fans of Overwatch films. I watch the movie, Soldier 76 a lot in my spare time. Everyone dreams of becoming a super soldier like Soldier 76. The corner of Captain Falcon's mouth twitched slightly. Is that a smile? Anyway, Luo Ning couldn't tell that the soldiers, especially the leaders, seemed serious. The special forces behind Captain Falcon were all eager to try. Hearing what the boss said, they rushed forward, squeezed Ronan and Thomas in the middle, and took a group photo together, showing happy smiles. They were all fantasizing about meeting Soldier 76 in action, but they never thought that the fantasy would come true, let alone that the captain would be so enlightened today. In the previous operations, I never took a group photo. Even if the task was easily completed and there were no casualties of comrades in arms, the captain would not allow them to take pictures as a souvenir, and always said that there was strict discipline. It was the first time for Captain Falcon to see his brothers so happy, and he reluctantly talked. Although he is the captain, he treats his subordinates as brothers. He has been born and died for many years, and the captain is just a person who gives orders. Laughter is uglier than crying, which is best reflected in him. After the group photo was taken, there was no need to stay, so Captain Falcon said goodbye to Luo Ning and Soldier 76, and asked, by the way, do you want to give you a ride? Thomas shook his head. Thanks, I drove here, so no need. Well, before leaving, the Falcon members stood neatly in a row in front of the helicopter, and the captain shouted loudly, all Falcon members, salute to Soldier 76. All the members, including the captain, raised their arms unanimously to pay the highest salute to Soldier 76. They knew very well that if Soldier 76 hadn't blown up the enemy stronghold before them, they would have had a hard fight, with inevitable casualties, possibly Mr. Ronan. But now, they accomplished the task with ease and were able to take one alive, all thanks to Soldier 76. Soldier 76, worthy of the salute of the Falcon Special Forces. Thomas's heart seemed to be shocked, his face was solemn, and he also stood still and saluted. Luo Ning stood aside and smiled gratifiedly. This result was something he was happy to see. After watching the 5 helicopters leave, Thomas took off his uniform, and the scene in his mind couldn't get rid of, is this what it feels like to be a hero? But I deserve it. Luo Ning patted him on the shoulder. No shame, your performance today is very good. You will definitely be able to play the role of Soldier 76 better and better, and you will even become a real Soldier 76 in the future. Hearing the unprecedented praise from the boss, Thomas seemed to be living in a dream. Okay, get the car out for me. Luo Ning took him to the place where the car was hidden. Thomas saw the front of the car hanging on the big rock, and immediately wanted to cry, Mr. Luo Ning, are you playing with me? Luo Ning shrugged, and said seriously, no way, I haven't driven for a long time, I'm a little raw, you are an old driver, I believe you can drive the car down. Thomas really wants to say that you believe that I have an egg, but I don't believe in myself. Driving the car to such a level. Female drivers may not be so powerful, I am really convinced. Washington, Tricurve Wing Building. A one-eyed black man was sitting on the balcony flipping through the newspaper, and a piece of news caught his attention again. On September 9th, the stronghold of the mercenary gang that attacked Bright Star was blown up. According to members of the Falcon Special Forces, the stronghold was blown up before they arrived at the stronghold, and the people who blew up the stronghold were its Soldier 28. Soldier 76 has a keen sense of danger. After Mr. Luo Ning was captured by the mercenary group, he rushed to the stronghold immediately, rescued Mr. Luo Ning, and then blew up the stronghold, and captured a life for the Falcon Special Forces. Next to it is a group photo of Soldier 76, Ronan and all members of the Falcon. Looking at the picture, the one-eyed black man was lost in thought. He had been paying attention to Soldier 76 as early as when the case at the deep-sea bar happened. The previous Shining Star attack case made him confirm one thing again. Soldier 76 is not a fictional movie character, but a real existence in the world. Super Soldier. Today, Soldier 76 appeared for the 3rd time and blew up the stronghold by himself. This was enough to attract his attention. If they can be recruited, it will be helpful for future plans. Of course, the premise is that Soldier 76 can meet the requirements in all aspects. This requirement is not only about force, but also other considerations, such as character, whether there are bad habits, whether the 3 views are normal, and so on. The other person in the group photo also caught his attention. Why did Soldier 76 appear in these 3 cases? There was always this young president named Luo Ning. In the first case, Soldier 76 appeared to protect Luo Ning, and in the second case, Soldier 76 appeared to protect all filmmakers at the International Film Summit, which is equivalent to protecting Luo Ning, and this time, Soldier 76 also appeared to protect Luo Ning. What is the connection between Soldier 76 and Ronin? How could it be the fictional superhero of Overwatch films? This Ronin does not seem to be as simple as it appears on the surface. Agent Coulson, come to my office. Soon, a man with a bright forehead came in, wearing a suit and leather shoes, but his hair was a little loose. Chief, Nick Fury handed over the newspaper. Agent Coulson, you are my most capable subordinate, what do you think about this matter? Agent Coulson took the newspaper, glanced at it, and then put the newspaper on the desk. In fact, he was also paying attention to Soldier 76. He probably knew about this news earlier than the director. Let's deduce that there are many coincidences. First, Soldier 76 is the first superhero fictionalized by Overwatch Pictures. Second, every time Soldier 76 appears, the CEO of Overwatch Pictures must also be it will appear. The third point, according to my observations these days, Soldier 76 does not disappear without a trace as everyone thinks, but is very close to the CEO of Overwatch films. After Agent Coulson finished speaking, he narrowed his eyes and came to a conclusion. Soldier 76 is just trying to confuse the public, and the CEO of Overwatch Pictures is behind the scenes. After his reasoning, Nick Fury suddenly understood. You mean, Soldier 76 obeys Ronin? Agent Coulson shrugged. That's right, Ronin is the one worthy of our attention. As long as we can win him over, believe me, Soldier 76 will definitely follow him. However, before that, we have to confirm his identity and see what he has experienced in his life. Nick Fury nodded. Yes, if he has other ambitions, I think what we have to consider is not how to recruit him, but how to eliminate him. Nick Fury brought Agent Coulson to the archives room without hindrance, where everyone's archives were collected, yes, everything. The Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, also known as SHIELD, was set up here to kill all the buds that threaten the world in their cradles. It is necessary and very necessary to master the detailed information of everyone. Find the detailed information of Luo Ning, call it out to check, the light screen shows. Luo Ning, the current CEO of Overwatch Pictures, his father is the CEO of Heian Pictures. Heian Pictures is the predecessor of Overwatch Pictures, and his mother is a housewife. After finishing college at MIT, Ronin took over his father's job. On June 2007, Luo Ning went out to socialize, and his parents died in a fire at home due to improper use of fire. On July 2008, Luo Ning changed the name of Heian Films to Overwatch Films, borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars, and filmed Soldier 1 inch according to the script he wrote. The total box office exceeded $76 billion, breaking the global box office record. It became famous in one fell swoop and established the dominance of Overwatch Pictures in the film industry. After reading it, Nick Fury and Agent Coulson looked at each other. There seemed to be nothing wrong with them. They were just an entrepreneur who had grown his own business by relying on his own talent and hard work. He had no special and bizarre experiences. Where did Soldier 76 come from? How can you listen to him? There may be some bizarre experiences that haven't been recorded. It's not certain. The reason why it's weird is because it's weird. Agent Coulson said. Oh, Agent Coulson, you're driving me crazy. Nick Fury frowned, but the tongue-twister words opened up another way of thinking for him. You said, is it possible that Soldier 76 was disguised by a person? With the current technology, it is not difficult to disguise as someone else. As long as you don't pay attention to details, it will be difficult to be discovered. Agent Coulson blinked. It's a matter of course. Luo Ning provides a set of Soldier 76 equipment, and let the subordinates play the role of Soldier 76. Immediately, he groped his chin and thought, but Soldier 76's physical strength is not something ordinary people can possess. Could it be some kind of serum? Nick Fury's expression suddenly became serious. Agent Coulson's face was also extremely tangled. If Ronin really had the serum to strengthen his physical strength, he would be a severely dangerous person. Who knows if he will use serum to mass-produce Soldier 76? Now it seems to be to help justice and maintain peace, but people's desires are endless. If the power at their disposal is too strong, people will lose their minds and eventually give this the world brings disaster. When they were thinking about countermeasures, a lady with a very good figure in a black tights pushed the door in. If you say so much, let me arrest him and interrogate him. I haven't performed a mission for a long time, and I'm going crazy staying in this place surrounded by walls. She twisted her shoulders and made a few crisp sounds. Coulson said with a look of disgust, Natasha, can you stop thinking about solving problems with violence? Things that can be solved with fists are not a problem. I don't know what you have been discussing for a long time here. Let me arrest him, and all problems will be solved. Natasha looked at the director eagerly. Nick Fury shook his head. Agent Romanov, things are not as simple as you think. Do you think people will be afraid of you if you fight hard? Then he looked at the mature and stable Phil Coulson. Agent Coulson, I think you have to make a trip. Agent Coulson raised a faint smile. Director, rap it on me. Natasha crossed her arms and snorted angrily, unable to understand his complacent gesture. September 9th is destined to be an exciting day. The highly anticipated second movie, Winston, in the Overwatch series will be released in major theaters. This day happens to be the weekend. No matter men, women, old or young, they can put down what they are doing and come to the cinema to relax. Some people may not be interested in movies, but they will also accompany their children and lovers to watch Winston. This is a carnival for the people and an unparalleled visual feast. At this time, Duband's homepage had an endless stream of posts. Today's Winston is released, and I will give you a ticket to the Flying Studios on Brick Street in Vancouver. You can eat and drink as much as you want. The requirements are as follows. Female gender, male preference, age between 18 and 26, good looks, and a good figure, the height is not less than 165, let go, like to flirt with boys. Manhattan International Studios has a team to watch movies, men and women are not limited, there are endless French fries, popcorn, and endless Coke. Is Winston finally coming out? My wallet is starving. 3 days to go. Luo Ning browsed through the posts, laughing out loud from time to time. The fans were really enthusiastic, and there were quite a few funny ones, all of them looked like comedians. Except for Duband, game forums and novel forums all discussed Winston unanimously, and posts such as team watching movies bloomed everywhere. In the movie forum, you can even discuss games. The forum administrator of a certain standalone masterpiece couldn't help posting such a post. It was too scary, the screen kept swiping, and I couldn't see any game guide posts. It was all Winston viewing guides and war leading posts. It is unimaginable that a movie can have such a strong appeal. The hot-blooded boy clicked on the indescribable website, and among the advertisements that read, Macau casinos are online, on the screen, there was a promotion for the movie Winston. There are also girls who are buying Maymay clothes online, and suddenly an advertisement for Winston pops up. Regardless of all walks of life, as long as you surf the internet, you will inevitably see words related to Winston. When you click in out of curiosity, you will inevitably order a movie ticket with your mobile phone. Whether you can get a reservation is still unknown, because many theaters are already full. Movie fans all over the world are waiting. 8 o'clock is the carnival time for the whole people. Luo Ning couldn't believe that the heated discussions about Winston had already flooded the internet. To be honest, the company didn't do much promotion. It just bought Google's trending search 3 days before the film's release. Other than that, it didn't do any other promotion. Even if he did, he didn't know it. Everything is run by Lucy. This unbelievable enthusiasm is more like arguing among movie fans. Yes, it is arguing. Many movie fans are arguing over who is stronger, Soldier 76 or Winston. This debate is spread all over the internet, and people who eat melons will inevitably be drawn into this debate. Maybe the people who eat melons only reply, passing, at the bottom of the post, and they will be sprayed with doubts about life by those trolls who hate the sky and the air, such as, passing you are paralyzed, idiot didn't see dads discussing things is it, son, get out of here. Such swear words are not uncommon. Luo Ning really wanted to say, why bother, what if the result of the argument? Superheroes have their own abilities and characteristics. In one aspect, this hero may be stronger, and on the other hand, other heroes may be stronger. There is no comparison at all. It hurts. Heroes have their own characteristics and charms. If you like this one, there is no need to belittle another hero. It is enough for everyone to love the hero in their hearts. If you have to belittle other heroes to elevate the hero you love, which will lead to scolding and fighting, then it will be a pain in the ass. Sir, the car is ready. Mr. Stark says he's here. Thomas, who wears floral shirts and aurochs, has grown a few folds of his own. Luo Ning is still wearing a loose sweater and sweatpants, and a pair of sneakers under his feet. His requirement for wearing is very simple, that is, comfort. Okay, I'll be right there. He has been refraining from watching the film, just to watch it with the fans today, so his mood at the moment is the same as that of the fans. Although he knows the direction of the plot, the visual impact cannot be brought by the script. As a producer, it must be a good experience to watch movies with fans. He and Tony are probably the most friendly celebrities. They can book the show or watch the movie at their own homes, but they can't, because that way they won't be able to hear the cries of fans when they see the highlights. Getting in the car, Luo Ning asked, "Lucy isn't coming?" Assistant Barron said she wasn't feeling well. Thomas replied, "Well, she will regret it, she didn't watch such a wonderful movie." In fact, Luo Ning knew that this was an excuse she was making. He had called her before, and Lucy told him not to go. His answer was of course that he had to go, and there was no need to be afraid when Iron Man was by his side. Lucy was very angry at the time, saying that he didn't think about her own safety, and she had already worried enough about the Bright Star incident. He replied casually, "Didn't you ask me to attend that summit? Then there is no more." After staying with him for so long, Lucy should know that he is a person who doesn't cause trouble but is not afraid of trouble. Why doesn't she understand him at all? I don't know how many exhibitions Tony has held, and it's not good. Now he just watches a movie with fans. Is he concerned about his own safety? The brain circuit is really strange. Such an opportunity only comes once every 6 months, and Luo Ning is unwilling to wait another 6 months. Manhattan International Studios is the most high-end movie theater in Manhattan. In it, you can even enjoy Geo. An orange supercar drove up and immediately attracted the attention of many people. Another big shot. When Luo Ning got out of the car, there was an uproar around him. Unexpectedly, the CEO of Overwatch Films and the producer and screenwriter of Winston came to watch the premiere of Winston with everyone. It turns out that the mysterious friend mentioned by Iron Man is Mr. Luo Ning. Many movie fans were glad that they got tickets, and those who didn't get tickets, after seeing these two, they didn't hesitate to pay a high price to buy them. Watching a movie in the same screening room as these two celebrities is definitely an amazing experience that will never be forgotten. What? Luo Ning had a headache. Those reporters were interviewing Tony. When they saw him appearing here, they immediately ran to a few. The division of labor was even. "Mr. Luo Ning, may I ask why you came to the theater to watch the movie in person?" "Because I want to watch the premiere of Winston with the fans and spend 2 wonderful hours together. I believe this will be an unforgettable night," everyone said, "Right." Yes. The fans responded in unison, with unprecedented enthusiasm, and their voices resounded through the sky. After the cheers, Tony introduced his assistant, Pepper Potts, to Ronan. "Hello, Mr. Luo Ning, I am also a loyal fan of Watchmen." Luo Ning held Little Pepper's slightly cold hand, smiled and said, "Hi, Miss Potts, it must be great to be Mr. Stark's assistant." Little Pepper is indeed very capable, and manages Stark Industries in an orderly manner, which is very similar to Lucy, but when thinking of Lucy, Ronan is a little unhappy, and she should have come. "It's a matter of duty." Little Pepper smiled sweetly. Luo Ning also smiled. Little Pepper is still very face-saving to Tony outside, and knows how to maintain a man's dignity outside, but at home, it's a different scene. He didn't believe that Pepper would think it was her job. As an assistant, she couldn't handle any affairs of Stark Industries, big or small. Tony was just like a decoration, and he didn't bother to come to the group. A qualified hands-off shopkeeper. Luo Ning also thinks so. That's right, Tony is a hands-off shopkeeper. He doesn't care about the group at all. He pushes all the work to women, but he lives freely. He has no conscience. "My conscience is greatly broken." Tony glanced at his watch. "Go in, it's almost 8 o'clock. As soon as he entered, he saw a fat man approaching and handed 3 movie tickets to Tony. "Mr. Stark, I wish you, Miss Potts, and Mr. Ronan a happy movie watching." "Thanks, Happy." Tony took the movie ticket. This fat man Ronan naturally recognized that Happy Hogan was both Tony's driver and Tony's bodyguard. To be honest, the identity of a bodyguard is good enough. If he is in danger, Tony has to protect him. The red suitcase that Happy later handed to Tony caught Ronan's attention. After thinking about it for a while, Luo Ning guessed what was in this suitcase. It was probably Tony's latest battle suit, Mark V. The Mark V is inferior to the Mark IV in terms of attack and defense, but it is light and portable, can be assembled anywhere, and can be folded into a suitcase when not needed. Tony made the Mark V just to deal with emergencies. It can be said that he has considered it very well. It would be safer if Thomas was around, but Thomas cared about the master-slave relationship very much. No matter what Ronan said, he would not come. In fact, Luo Ning doesn't care about these things at all. After so many things, he has long regarded Thomas as a friend, and he can also see that Thomas treats him as a friend, but there is always a gap in Thomas's heart, and he has an inexplicable awe of the boss. It is inseparable from its growth experience. There are 3 seats. Tony sits in the middle, Pepper sits in the back, and Ronan sits in the aisle. Luo Ning was very relieved. In fact, there was no need to worry too much about any terrorist attacks. The security force of Manhattan International Studios was very strong. It would take a lot of work for terrorists to get in. The security personnel were all special police officers, so they were sufficient to deal with ordinary crises. At first, everyone's eyes fell on him and Tony, and the dark projection room kept flickering lights, which were fans filming them with their mobile phones. He and Tony didn't say anything. They could understand the feelings of the fans. Maybe they only had this chance once in a lifetime, so they simply closed their eyes and let them take pictures. When bright lights appear on the screen, the attention of movie fans is attracted by the colorful pictures. There is no prologue. From the beginning of the plot, it is locked on several scientists. Due to the problem of the Earth's population expansion, they have to find a planet suitable for human survival. Therefore, a new space exploration plan was drawn up, and the exploration of the moon was the first and most critical step of this plan. Scientists successfully landed on the moon and established a colony on the moon, named Horizon. Among the colony's inhabitants are a group of genetically modified gorillas who are there to test a host of questions about living in space for extended periods of time. One of the gorillas showed signs of rapid brain development after being genetically modified by the team of Dr. Harold Winston, who himself taught human science and creativity. Wow, it's so cute. I really want to have a pet like this. Little Pepper held his face in both hands, and said infatuatedly. Winston was a cute animal when he was a child, and the hearts of many girls in theaters were melted by Winston's naughty and cute image. Those rough guys only think that this orangutan is cute, and want to hold it in their arms and ravage it. Luo Ning admits that he has no such thoughts. He is not a rough guy, but a literary youth. Then I'll buy you an orangutan as a birthday present, Tony said solemnly. Little Pepper glared at him, knowing that he couldn't say anything good. In reality, the orangutan is not likable, and it's not as cute as Winston. The story continues. A few years later, the little cute thing grows into a young gorilla, although Meng can't see him, but he can see his strength and intelligence. Since then, Winston has become an experimental assistant for scientists, often observing the beautiful blue planet outside the window, longing for the infinite possibilities there. Just when everything was going in a good direction, the gorillas who had lived in the Horizon for a long time launched a riot. They did not want to be raised by humans as livestock and wanted to dominate the planet. One of the gorillas, number 18, leader of rioting. The first riot occurred when a scientist was delivering food to them, and 3 orangutans brutally killed him. Many movie fans were very nervous seeing this place with their hearts beating faster. Everything was originally beautiful, but from this moment on, it is destined that this is not a fairy tale. Fans are wondering, why? Scientists eat and drink all day long, and when they are sick, they have to go to great lengths to treat them. These gorillas are more like a group of uncles. Scientists take care of them meticulously. Why suddenly attack scientists? This is the animal nature that goes deep into the bone marrow. After the gorillas are genetically modified, they have the intelligence and way of thinking of humans, can speak, and behave like humans. Animal nature is therefore infinitely magnified. At first the gorillas were in awe of the scientists, but after getting to know them, they found that these scientists had nothing that could threaten them. Their desire for freedom, power, and the future prompted them to riot. The only gorilla that is not dominated by the bestiality is Winston, because he is born smart, and after genetic modification, he is smarter than other gorillas. He can use laboratory materials to invent some gadgets, so he can control his own beast. When the laboratory base was besieged by orangutans, Winston stood up bravely and swore to protect the scientists. But outnumbered, the scientists fell in a pool of blood one after another, and finally even Dr. Harold Winston, whom it desperately protected, also fell in front of it. Seeing this, the eye sockets of many girls were moist. They witnessed the relationship between Dr. Harold and Winston, and also witnessed Dr. Harold's death in front of Winston. This feeling is very uncomfortable. The endless anger completely stimulated the bestiality in Winston and magnified it infinitely. Its eyes turned golden, and its body turned dark red like the fire of hell. Its whole body was entwined with golden arcs, and with every gesture, it possessed the power to shatter mountains and shatter earth. When the climax comes, all the male compatriots are burning with blood, and they can't wait to get into the screen and tear those conscience-stricken gorillas to pieces with their own hands. In the end, Winston killed the leader of the riot, the gorilla number 18, and all of his kind. Once the animal nature in the body is completely released, even Winston himself can't control it. Only when the anger dissipates and the threat is removed can he return to the state of self-consciousness. Winston's life could never go back, and all that, Horizon, left him was sadness and pain. He has no name, only a serial number. Out of love for Dr. Harold, he decided to inherit his surname, Winston, and designed a temporary rocket to fly to that blue planet. There, Winston found a new home, Overwatch. 2 hours flew by, the movie ended, and many viewers were still reluctant to leave, reminiscing about what happened in the movie. "Wow, great movie," Tony said, getting up. Before, he still had doubts about Luo Ning's screenwriting ability, because Luo Ning's masterpiece so far is only Soldier 76, maybe it was an occasional flash of inspiration, but now, he completely admires it. It may be a flash of inspiration to make one good work, but it takes a lot of skill to make 2 good works. Genius screenwriter, well deserved. I am a little looking forward to the day when Iron Man is released. With Ronan's level, it will definitely not make a bad movie, at least it will be at the same level as Soldier 76 inches and Winston. He has already made a decision that on the day of the premiere of Iron Man, all employees of Stark Industries will be invited to watch Iron Man. This movie feast that belongs to him should be enjoyed by everyone. Pepper also nodded in praise. The story is very good, but the ending is a bit sad. It would be great if Dr. Harold didn't die, and go to Earth with Winston. That should be better. There are 1,000 Hamlets in the eyes of 1,000 people. Everyone has their own happy ending, but the movie presents only one ending, so it can't satisfy everyone. Luo Ning changed the subject, but it means that the ending I choose is the best, and you can keep the happy ending you think in your heart, that is the best. Little Pepper nodded lightly, as if what he said made sense. Don't worry, there are still eggs. Luo Ning told them to sit down first. After the credits at the end, the black and white suddenly turned into a colorful picture, and it was another small clip. When the other audience watched it, they immediately returned to their seats. They didn't see enough. Even if there was only a little ending, they had to watch it, otherwise it would be a blood loss. The screen cuts to the Overwatch building, where Winston integrates into this big family, gradually forgets his sadness, and becomes one with Soldier 76. "You rude gorilla, if you dare to dismantle my pulse rifle again, I will throw you out." Soldier 76 was very troubled. Winston was good at everything, but he liked to dismantle things. His pulse rifle had been dismantled by Winston no less than 10 times. He thought Winston was trying to prove his strong hands-on ability. In fact, Winston likes to tinker with these things in Horizon. He often makes an item and then disassembles and reinstalls it when he gets tired of playing. This is his only fun in the laboratory. When he came to Overwatch, the fun has not changed. Winston turned a deaf ear to it and dismantled the pulse rifle into parts. Soldier 76 couldn't stand it any longer. He came up and raised his fist, pretending to be fierce. "Believe it or not, I'll beat you up." Winston's eyes widened and he raised his black fist. The 2 fists are in sharp contrast, one is like a meat bun, the other is like 100 catty weight. The result of the collision can be imagined. Soldier 76 was like a frost-beaten eggplant. and weakly punched Winston's chest with a small fist. Okay, just take it apart, and remember to restore it to me after you take it apart. The audience roared with laughter, which made many viewers who were sad because of the ending feel better. Then the camera zooms out, and the Overwatch building stands impressively in the bustling urban area, with the BUT logo shining brightly. Careful viewers will find that not far from the Overwatch building stands a particularly familiar building. Its top is very pointed, but below it is a flat ground, which seems to provide a landing point for small flying objects such as helicopters. The camera flashed, and the building was completely presented in the eyes of the audience, and the letters, Stark, on it were particularly conspicuous. Wow, the audience exclaimed, isn't this the Stark Tower? At this point, the whole film is completely over. Tony's eyes sparkled, and he looked at Luo Ning excitedly, is this a surprise? Luo Ning shrugged, if you think it is, then it is. Kind of cool. Tony didn't slow down a bit. This surprise was so unexpected that it would appear at the end of the movie. Pepper was also very excited. As an employee of Stark Industries, when he saw his company appear on the screen, his heart would be more or less turbulent. Mr. Luo Ning, will the next movie be Iron Man? Asked an audience member. Many people present have read the news, saying that Mr. Luo Ning and Mr. Stark will cooperate to create the Iron Man movie. From this point of view, it is true, the next movie is likely to be Iron Man. The Easter egg has already told you the answer, why ask me? Luo Ning got up and said, that will be an epic masterpiece. Tony added. The audience shouted Iron Man in unison. Tony opened his arms, closed his eyes and raised his head, as if he was in the spotlight, and he enjoyed this feeling. Tony, let's go. Pepper grabbed his cuff, breaking his pretentious moment. Tony lowered his arms, curled his lips, and whispered dissatisfiedly, can't you let me enjoy it? Wait until the day Iron Man is released, and you will enjoy it. Little Pepper said angrily. Ronan, seeing Luo Ning walking away, Tony followed quickly. Ronan, I have an idea to involve Iron Man in an operation. Tisk, that must be a wonderful story. After the story, Tony looked intoxicated. Luo Ning said earnestly, Tony, the Iron Man script has been completed. Adding anything to it now will destroy its original look and feel, and make the story development nondescript or cumbersome. Okay, when can I enjoy the script? Facing Ronan, in terms of screenwriting, Tony really didn't have the courage to refute. He represented authority, and he was at best a mechanic with rich imagination and had no research on screenwriting. If you have time, do it now. Hearing this, Tony turned and looked at Pepper. Pepper. Okay Tony, you don't need to say anything. Happy, let's go. Little Pepper's face was full of displeasure, and he turned and got into Happy's black car. Then we also. Before Luo Ning finished speaking, he saw Tony's face tightened, and he threw him behind the car. Ding ding ding. The bullet hit the iron trash can, making a series of crisp sounds, and then a shell bombed. Good guy. Luo Ning hid behind the car, his ears buzzing from the aftermath, and he immediately stared. Do so many people want his life? Is he that enviable? What did he do wrong? Tony got up and opened the suitcase, stepped on the boots with both feet, and other parts were automatically equipped on the body. In about 10 seconds, he was tightly wrapped in the red and silver battle suit. Mark 5, as online. Tony raised his palms, and 2 recoil particle beams were shot out. The so-called recoil particle beams, in layman's terms, are palm cannons. Bang! Over there, the armed thugs in plain clothes were bombed to pieces. The bullet hit Tony, making a ding 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 sound. Even though the Mark 5 is very thin, it is not something that can be broken by ordinary bullets. Thomas originally wanted to put on the uniform of Soldier 76, but when he looked at the situation, he instantly lost his mind. They were all low-level terrorists, and Iron Man could handle them, so it wasn't worth his presence. Seeing the fallen terrorists, Luo Ning breathed a sigh of relief, but couldn't figure it out. Didn't you take away the den of the mercenary gang? Why are there still people messing with him? Who in the end is lingering and watching him? As long as he appears in public, someone will attack him, and treat him as a persimmon. He was really in a hurry. He didn't mind transforming into Soldier 76, and chasing down the mastermind to the ends of the earth. Luo Ning made up his mind that he must use his veins these few days to find out who is behind the scenes, otherwise he can only stay at home and dare not go anywhere. Although he is happy to be a nerd, the feeling of a passive nerd is different from an active nerd. A passive house is like being locked in a prison. You can't go anywhere. Sooner or later you will go crazy. Even if you are an active house, you will inevitably go to the company on business. He doesn't want to be sent to the sky by a missile on the way to the company. The gunshots stopped, and Tony scanned around. After finding out that the threat was eliminated, he took off his armor, and Mark V turned into a red suitcase again. The people hiding in the theater witnessed the whole process. After the gunfight subsided, they still had lingering fears, and they dared to run out after a long delay. I'm so glad Iron Man was there, otherwise I don't know how many innocent lives would have been lost. A teenager skateboarded over, stared at the suitcase in Tony's hand, and said with admiration, "Mr. Stark, is this your latest suit? It's so cool." The corner of Tony's mouth curled up, a little smug. Mark V, the portable suit, was made just a few days ago. After calming down, Pepper quickly ran out of the car and hugged Tony, who had frightened her just now. Tony patted her on the back lightly and reassured, "It's okay, Pepper." Then he gently pushed the little Pepper away, and looked at Luo Ning with a serious face. "I think you should not show up easily during this time, you may have become a thorn in someone's side." Luo Ning nodded, then snorted coldly, "Then my nail will ruthlessly stab that man's eyes. Go back and have a good rest. We'll talk about the script another day." Tony patted him on the shoulder. It can be seen that Luo Ning is in a bad mood at the moment. There are indeed too many terrorist attacks these days, and all of them are aimed at him. First, there was the bar attack, then the summit attack, and today's relatively small-scale attack. With Luo Ning's strength alone, it is very difficult to fight against those guys who hide in the dark. Those guys never show up in an open manner, and they will always stab you when you are not paying attention. As soon as I got in the car, Lucy called. "Mr. Luo Ning, I just heard that there was a terrorist attack in the international studios, are you all right?" Luo Ning said calmly, "Don't worry about what can happen if Iron Man is by your side. He doesn't want to bring his bad mood to others. He is willing to share happiness but not sorrow. It's fine, I should come with you." Lucy regretted it very much. With him, at least the real people would not be out of her sight. She could know whether she was safe or not at the first time. She could only be anxious when staying at home. She never wanted to experience the feeling of burning with anxiety. "It's okay, there are many opportunities. Dear Miss Barrett, I now officially extend an invitation to you. I invite you to watch the future Iron Man movie." Luo Ning realized that he had been hanging out with Tony for a long time, and instead of learning good things, he learned to be full of dirty words. Lucy readily agreed, and only after this incident happened did she realize that Luo Ning had a large proportion in her heart. He was not only the one who paid her salary, but also a good friend who talked about everything. "Thomas, who do you think is messing with me?" After hanging up the phone, Luo Ning fell into deep thought. If he didn't get rid of those guys, he might not be able to sleep peacefully at night. Thomas frowned, and guessed, "Let me first declare that this represents my personal speculation and opinion, and has nothing to do with other people. Please take it as a joke, sir, and don't take it too seriously." "Say it." Luo Ning was inexplicably irritable. "I really don't know where Thomas learned these bad habits. Could it be that the soul of the second child has spread to all limbs and bones?" Thomas looked serious. "I guess it's your competitor, sir." Luo Ning was speechless. He really wanted to slap him. "Why do you have to guess? Besides competitors, who else has nothing to do and hires people to attack him all day long? He thinks that he is not a public enemy of the United States, let alone a public enemy of the world. Although he has not done anything to benefit the public, he has not done anything bad, and he will return it to the public. Bring audiovisual enjoyment in spare time. So it must be a competitor. Which one is it? Cromwell, Hill, or other big names? It shouldn't be. They have seen how powerful they are, so they shouldn't be making fun of themselves. "Haven't you considered Flying Films, sir?" Thomas asked. "Flying Film Company." Luo Ning muttered in a low voice. "The CEO was killed by him, so Feixiong Film Company can still make waves. If you think about it carefully, it's not impossible. After all, Feixiong Film Company was the first to attack Overwatch films. Maybe there are people in Feixiong Film Company who are the same as Charlie. Just like a hydra, one head is cut off, and two heads grow again. As long as someone inherits Charlie's thoughts, then the person who inherits Charlie's thoughts is likely to launch a violent revenge against him. No cooperation, only destruction. However, the scale of Overwatch films is too large, and they have no way to start. The only way to bring down Overwatch Pictures is to kill him. The most direct and easiest. Luo Ning's thoughts suddenly cleared up. Thomas, I will give you a 20% commission on your salary this month. He thought of many possibilities, but only ruled out Feixiong Film Company, because he felt that Feixiong would lose its backbone after Charlie's death. Only Flying Film Company would go out of their way to punish him. Yes, it must be so. Thomas was very happy, and he could spend a lot of time in nightclubs when he was free. When you get home, put in neutral, release the clutch, pull the handbrake, and turn off the engine, all in one go. As soon as I got out of the car, the phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number. After answering, there came a very anxious voice. Mr. Luo Ning, this is the Falcon Special Forces. We just found out the results of the interrogation. They are hired by Sammy Walton, the current CEO of Flying Films and the cousin of former CEO Spark Charlie. Really, we went to Flying Film Company to arrest people, but there was no one there, and there was no one when we went to his house, so please be careful and stay at the police station. In short, you need to find a place that can guarantee your safety. Wait for us to act. Okay, I know. Luo Ning hung up the phone, glanced around subconsciously, and gestured to Thomas not to get out of the car. At this moment, two teams of strong men in suits and leather shoes appeared on both sides of the villa. It's just that the suits and leather shoes are okay, but they have all kinds of guns in their hands, and one of them is carrying a gun barrel on his shoulder, which is too much, brother. Could this be the legendary thug in a suit? In the end, a dwarf appeared with a cigar in his mouth. He was actually 1 meter tall, but the thugs in suits around him were all tall and strong. In contrast, they were no different from dwarves. The dwarf took a deep puff on his cigar, exhaled smoke rings, and walked slowly to Ronan. CEO of Overwatch Films, screenwriter of Soldier, 76 feet, producer who broke global box office records, Tisk. So many honors added to me, it's not in my hands now. The dwarf straightened the tie on his chest and knocked his head. I almost forgot, you are still the screenwriter of Winston, and I believe you were very distressed when you encountered such trouble on the premiere day of Winston. Luo Ning blew away the smoke in front of him, and said with a slight smile, in order to kill me, little man, you really worked so hard, what a pity, what a pity. Who do you call a dwarf? The dwarf seemed to be very sensitive to this word. When he heard it, he immediately became impatient, took out his knife and gestured in front of Luo Ning, call me a dwarf again, and I will cut off your tongue. If I don't call you a dwarf, what will I call you? The knife was right in front of his eyes, but Luo Ning was not afraid at all. He had enough support. Talking so much with this dwarf was purely prying. If there were only so many people, it would be embarrassing. My name is Sammy Walton. You killed my cousin. I can finally avenge him. The dwarf gritted his teeth. Luo Ning shook his head. Oh, so it's that bald cousin. You are bald, and your whole family is bald. Walton was furious. He hoped to see fear on Ronan's face, but Ronan always had a calm expression on his face, as if he didn't take him seriously at all. Little boy, do you know that your crime has been known by everyone, and now countless policemen are arresting you? Luo Ning said. Walton roared. Of course I know. From the moment the mercenary stronghold was blown up by Soldier 76, I knew that this matter would not be hidden for long, but before I was captured, I must kill you and replace you. My cousin revenge. Kill me. Luo Ning curled his lips. Maybe there is a possibility in the next life. I can't kill you. Walton laughed loudly, and with a wave of his arm, the thugs in suits pointed their guns at Ronan. Who do you think you are? No matter how many honors you have, you are an ordinary person after all. You will die if you get shot. Do you think Soldier 76 will be by your side all the time? Walton took out his pistol. Sorry, Soldier 76 will indeed be by my side all the time. As soon as the words fell, Luo Ning rolled backwards, and Thomas suddenly jumped out of the car and stood in front of Luo Ning. Dang dang dang. Thomas crossed his arms like an iron wall, blocking countless bullets. When a cannonball hit, Thomas held it hard, but his battle suit was severely damaged, his chest was scorched black, and it was sizzling and sparking. Although metal is added to the suit, the defense is still limited, and it cannot be compared with the pure metal suit of the Mark IV, and even the defense of the Mark V cannot be achieved. It's okay to block bullets, but it's very reluctant to block shells. The moment Soldier 76 appeared, the thugs in suits immediately panicked. A man who could even blow up a mercenary stronghold was not something they could compete with. All they can do is shoot, and the bullets shoot out like they don't need money, trying to suppress Soldier 76 with firepower, because they know that once Soldier 76 launches a counterattack, they will have no power to fight back and can only wait for death to come. Soldier 76 can't save you, die, Ronan. Seeing that Soldier 76 could only be beaten passively, Walton stood aside happily smoking a cigar. As they thought, Soldier 76 was completely suppressed by the firepower, and there was no room for resistance at all, but this was not the same as in the movie. Soldier 76 is not Iron Man, how could he forcibly resist so many bullets? Knock down one me, and there will be tens of thousands of me standing up. The firepower poured down for so long, Thomas finally couldn't hold on anymore. He knelt on one knee and supported his body with the rifle. Fortunately, the enemy emptied the bullets and was busy changing the magazines. We are on the same front. The moment he fell, another Soldier 76 appeared, the tactical eyepiece flashing red. What? Just as Walton took a puff, he coughed dryly from the smoke. His face was full of horror. He would never have thought that there would be two Soldier 76 in the world, let alone that Luo Ning was also the incarnation of Soldier 76. All of this is beyond his comprehension. How is it possible? Those thugs in suits found it even more unbelievable. Superheroes can still be mass-produced. Luo Ning started to run. His battle suit was light, and its bulletproof effect was very average. It could be worn as a bulletproof vest at a long distance, but being hit at such a distance was no different from being hit on the cloth. Speed is the key to victory. The spiral missile was launched, and 3 tiny rockets spun out. Bang! The tiny rocket exploded, releasing a brilliant blue air wave, instantly killing 4 people and injuring 3 or 4 others. Since he accumulated a lot of energy by blocking the door and killing people in the mercenary stronghold last time, he only fired 4 or 5 shots now, and the energy was full. Tactical eyepiece activated. Even in the dark, he can clearly see the enemy's position. The blue barrier that appeared in front of Luo Ning's eyes was extremely bright in the dark night, floating around in midair like a ghost. The blue flame at the muzzle was also jumping happily, and every time it jumped, one person was declared dead. After a while, the black-clothed thugs all fell to the ground, with crystal blue light shining on their chests. The crystal blue bullet holes on the chests of dozens of corpses are vaguely connected into lines, forming a beautiful pattern, just like stars in the sky. After finishing off the enemy, Ronan walked up to Thomas, squatted on the ground and placed a bio-launcher. The pale yellow bio-energy rose up, dancing like a firefly, healing his wounds. Thomas was seriously injured, and his suit was riddled with holes. Fortunately, the bullets were caught in the internal metal, so they did not enter the body, but only injured the skin. Under the action of the biological force field, the skin wounded by the shells and scratched by the bullets healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Sir, I feel better. Thomas stared at the gadget on the ground, thinking that this little bio-launcher was miraculous, it could heal any injury. The performance is good, and this month's commission will be increased by 30%. Luo Ning snapped his fingers, feeling lucky to have a friend who cooperates so tacitly. There is a faint light shining over, and quickly cancel the transformation state. A helicopter flew over, landed not far away, and jumped out of 6 special forces. Luo Ning stepped forward and said, "You guys are one step too late." The Falcon member nodded awkwardly. The captain guessed that there might be an accident at Mr. S. house, so he specially sent us to protect you. Unexpectedly, Soldier 76 was one step ahead of Falcon. Seeing the tattered battle clothes on Soldier 76, he let out a light sigh. It seems that a fierce battle broke out just now. Thomas sighed, "I'm too old to move. It's up to you to maintain the peace of the world. You can't fall down." The Falcon member joked. Walking forward and seeing a pile of corpses, he muttered, "It's really smart to wear a suit when you do something bad. Maybe it was to prove that I was a decent person before my death." Luo Ning said. "This guy should be that Walton," the Falcon member said. After Walton died, he still looked terrified, with a cigar still burning in his hand. He would never have thought that what he thought was Soldier 76 was not actually Soldier 76. Self-righteousness eventually cost him his life. After solving the big trouble, Luo Ning felt a lot of relief in his heart. It was a good premiere day of Winston, but it was spoiled by that dwarf, but Walton got the punishment he deserved, and in the future, no one will attack him at every turn. I have to think about moving. Now I don't know who knows where he lives. It is known that Lucy, Thomas, Walton, Falcon Special Forces, and by the way, Tony, who has a tracker installed in his uniform, must know where his home is. I don't know if Walton has any accomplices, and he should be left alive, but the situation was urgent and there was not much time to think about it. Why do you think so much? The person who can kill me hasn't been born yet. Luo Ning felt that he was worrying too much. As long as he activated Winston's transformation, he would be at ease. The premiere of Winston, yesterday, the box office reached 8 million. You must know that the box office of Soldier 76 inches on the first day was only 6 million. It can be seen that the global box office of Winston is about to break through a new high. What are the movies of the same period? The Strongest Soldier, Leg Man, and Scorpion Man, anyway, are all kinds of superhero movies, all of which followed the example of Soldier 76, and the results were terrible. Luo Ning looked at the statistics. Apart from Winston, the first day box office hit a record high, and none of the other films exceeded 3 million. I also admire these producers for daring to release Winston at the same time, and the release time is only 5 days apart. When the audience buys movie tickets, they will inevitably choose those with high viewing value. At a glance, as long as the appreciation level is not a problem, they will basically choose Winston again. In the end, it will be transformed into a fan of Overwatch films. Luo Ning is confident in the quality of the films he makes. Top-notch scripts, top-notch equipment, top-notch special effects, and top-notch actors, all of them are of the highest standard. Not counting operating costs, this is beyond the imagination of other producers. It is unknown whether they will get back after investing so much. Luo Ning never worried about these things. As long as the movie is made, the only problem is how much to make, and there is no problem of losing money. Duban is also well received. Of course there is no shortage of trolls and brainless sprays. The special effects of Winston are eye-catching. The special effects 5 years ago were better than this. Winston was completely hyped up, and the quality of the film is not that good at all, especially those actors, their acting skills are too poor. Winston is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. Orangutans can speak after being genetically modified. So awesome. Please transform me so that I have the power of orangutans. Is this Navy so unprofessional? Spraying can't even spray the idea, and the world's best special effects can also be sprayed. The actor who is recognized as the best acting in the world can also spray. Sci-fi movies are supposed to imagine the future, can this also be sprayed? Of course, the Water Army is no match for the fans after all. Countless fans responded to the post, and the Water Army was also very tenacious, and went back one by one, but when the figure of 8 million box office on the first day appeared, the Water Army did not say a word. The most authoritative data proves that Winston is a good movie, at least it is commercially successful, and it doesn't make sense to pick a bone. Swipe the screen, a very familiar ID appears, Bean Gasification Horse. Oh, it turned out to be the duty who praised Winston just after watching the trailer. At this time, the duty posted a post saying where did the people who sprayed him before go? Slap in the face. He said before that Winston will surpass Soldier 76 inches and will talk about in-depth things. In fact, Winston does talk about the conflict between human civilization and technological evolution, which is relatively deep topic of. There were no voices of refutation in the replies, and they were all praises, saying, the person who can be promoted to duty is really capable, I admire him. It can be seen that the poster's ability to judge films is very strong, and you can know after watching the trailer. What is the feature film about? So what I want to say is, I asked the host to recommend a movie. The Bean Emperor was greatly satisfied psychologically, and he communicated with the floor master without saying a word. Bean gasification horse, so terrifying. In addition to these, there are also many movie fans who expressed their impressions after watching the movie. They are very honest and reflect the true thoughts of the vast majority of movie fans after watching the movie. Among them, the one mentioned by Pepper is the one who thinks that Dr. Harold it's better to be alive and to have a happier ending. In fact, they are all from the perspective of the audience. Of course, the audience hopes for a happy ending. For example, people who love each other can enter the palace of marriage in the end, true friends can accompany the protagonist to the end, bad guys die and good people live. This kind of ending is certainly good, but it can't impress the audience deeply. From the perspective of filmmakers, what they film is not a fairy tale, but reality. Fairy tales are often beautiful, but reality is often cruel. A movie is a mirror that can reflect real life, so the ending of a movie is usually impossible to achieve perfection, and it would be meaningless. People have joys and sorrows, and the moon is full of gloom. From ancient times to the present, there is no absolutely perfect thing, not to mention movies. It is precisely because of the imperfect part that people will strive to pursue the imperfect part and make it perfect. Seeing this, Luo Ning was really happy. As a filmmaker, someone who appreciates his films is a great support and encouragement to him. Luo Ning encouraged himself. He had to put Iron Man on the agenda as soon as possible. Time was running out. He wanted to improve himself as much as possible before all kinds of disasters broke out, and this kind of improvement was to activate the heroes of Overwatch transformation form. Activate one more hero, one more guarantee. All he can do is speed things up without compromising the quality of the movie. The purpose of filming Iron Man is to make friends with Tony. At most, he can make a fortune through this, and he will not get any transformation form of the hero. Then Tony would probably doubt life. Getting acquainted with Tony seems to be very necessary at the moment. Looking at the Soldier 76 suit box, this thing has to be repaired by Tony. Luo Ning stretched his waist, picked up the Iron Man script on the table and read it, put it in his briefcase after confirming that there was no problem, and then called Thomas. After a while, a whistle sounded outside the door. So fast, Luo Ning froze for a moment, and went to open the door. A black car stopped at the door, and a man in a neat suit got out of the car and smiled at him. This person is not black, of course it is not Thomas. Ronan reacted quickly. Phil Coulson. S.H.I.E.L.D. Was S.H.I.E.L.D. targeted so soon? It shouldn't be. He doesn't have superpowers, and he hasn't revealed his identity. He is just a salted fish president. If he wants to find him, he should find Thomas. What kind of thing is this? There is no logic. Nice meeting, Mr. Luo Ning. Coulson walked towards him with a false smile on his face. Ronan blocked the door, with a face full of disapproval. If getting acquainted with Tony was helpful to him, then getting acquainted with agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or getting involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. would only increase unnecessary troubles. Coulson walked to the door and stopped, speaking slowly and authentically. Let me introduce myself. My name is Phil Coulson, a cadre of a certain bureau of the National Defense Agency. So how did you know my address, and how can I trust you? There are too many people who want to kill me. Luo Ning asked the question knowingly, in order to play the role of CEO of Overwatch Films well. We know everyone's information and address. As for my identity, you can take a look at this. Coulson reached into his inner pocket and took out his personal ID. Luo Ning held it in his hand and looked at it. Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Support Agency, Agent Phil Coulson, with the official seal printed on it. So, I don't think I have done anything illegal. What did Mr. Detective ask me for? Luo Ning still had no intention of letting him in. Don't you think you have a lot of troubles recently? I'm here to help you solve them. Quote. Coulson didn't expect this person to act so cautiously, but it's not surprising that he can develop his own business to such an extent without a city mansion. Sorry, the culprit who hired someone to attack me is dead. I don't think I will have any trouble in the future. Luo Ning said. Suddenly, there was a roar of the engine, and a sports car rushed towards here like a mad cow, as if it had reached its maximum horsepower. Coulson looked back. his face suddenly changed, and he quickly dodged, and Luo Ning also ran in quickly, hiding the battle suit box by the way. Seeing that the sports car was about to collide, it stopped at the door in time. Thomas got out of the car, pointed his pistol at Coulson, and said loudly, "Say, who sent you here?" Coulson smiled and said, "The guy has good driving skills." "Who the hell is your buddy? Don't get close to me." Thomas approached slowly. Coulson's eyes were fixed, and he quickly bent over and hugged Thomas's legs, and threw them back forcefully. Thomas turned over and fell to the ground in an instant. With one last kick the pistol was kicked out. Luo Ning came out and clapped his hands. "Good skill. So you came here just to hit my driver?" Coulson shrugged. "Sorry, it doesn't feel safe to be pointed at by someone with a gun. If it were you, you would have put the gun down on him first." Thomas got up and scratched his head in bewilderment. "Didn't this guy come to attack Mr.? I'm really sorry, buddy. Next time, remember to figure out the situation before doing anything." Coulson helped him dust off his body, and praised, "The driving skills are really good, and the car is not bad." "Then who are you?" Thomas demanded. "Someone who can provide you with protective measures." Luo Ning said, "I think I have made it clear enough. The person who wanted to harm me is already dead, so I don't need to bother you, let alone your Homeland War Defense Bureau. I can protect myself." Coulson frowned dissatisfiedly. "It's the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. Don't you think this name is very long and hard to remember?" Luo Ning spread his hands. "You can also call SHIELD. SHIELD, Ronan repeated, and nodded. "Well, the name is quite catchy. Okay, I won't go around the bush anymore, I'm here to investigate you." Coulson lost his patience. He was really convinced, if he didn't show his intention of coming, there is no doubt that this guy could stand outside the door and chat with him all day long. Investigation. It would have been nice to have said so earlier. Luo Ning pushed open the door and let him in. "Please, Mr. Detective." Coulson couldn't help feeling a headache. This guy didn't follow the rules at all. "Tea, coffee. Mister, please make me a cup of coffee." Coulson sat on the sofa and relaxed his whole body and mind. If he had known this, why bother to talk to him outside for a long time? "But my family seems to only have tea." Coulson's complexion alternated between pale and white, and he immediately wanted to say that there is no coffee, you need to ask a question, but he still has a task, and he still said kindly, "Tea is also fine." Bilawachun, Longjing, Tigenian, Maujian, question mark. Coulson seemed to hear a very unfamiliar word, probably the type of tea, so he said, "I have no research on tea, any kind will do." Ronan made tea and sat down. Thomas also sat aside. "I think so. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't know what Mr. Detective is going to investigate," Luo Ning asked. Coulson opened the skylight and said bluntly, "Mr. Luo Ning, these recent cases are all related to you, and Soldier 76 will appear in every case. Soldier 76 is just a superhero under your company. Don't tell me it's a coincidence. Is this a coincidence or not? The purpose of Soldier 76's existence is to fight crime. If there are malicious attacks, he will of course appear. As for why he is a superhero under our company, I still wonder. This is the first time I see Soldier 76, I was surprised for a long time. Then why can't you see Soldier 76 in other illegal places, but in Manhattan? Although Soldier 76 runs fast, he is not a flying man. How can he be expected to solve the terrorist incidents in various places? Maybe his residence is somewhere in Manhattan. But Soldier 76 came very close to you. Maybe he has also seen the movie, Soldier 76 Feet, so he has a good impression of me, and he saved me 3 times, counting last night, a total of 4 times. It is not too much for me to invite him to sit at home." Coulson suddenly had nothing to ask. This guy seemed to know what he was going to ask in advance, and he answered it just after asking. It was not nonsense, and it seemed very reasonable. Talking dryly, Coulson took a sip from his teacup, and suddenly his face was uncomfortable, and his facial features were all crowded together. "It's so bitter. Are you sure it's tea, not medicine? Mr. Detective doesn't like to drink strong tea. Blame me, I'll give you tea according to my taste." Luo Ning got up and made him another cup of weak tea. Coulson was lost in thought. Ronan made him feel like an aloof president, but the relationship between Ronan and Soldier 76 was definitely not that simple, but he didn't have more information, so he couldn't deduce it. How about trying to win him over first? In this way, S.H.I.E.L.D. can also monitor him at all times. As long as he has abnormal movements, S.H.I.E.L.D. will know immediately. Anyway, he firmly believes that Soldier 76 must have an unusual relationship with Luo Ning, and that this relationship will be cleared up one day. However, before wooing him, you must first show the director of Luo Ning's comprehensive quality evaluation report. As long as the director thinks it is okay, then you can let Luo Ning enter the S.H.I.E.L.D. good. S.H.I.E.L.D. will not lose anything because of this, and if Ronan really masters some kind of enhanced serum, they will guide him on the right path first, and if Ronan does it the other way around, then S.H.I.E.L.D's situation will definitely eradicate the threat. Mr. Detective, is there anything else you need to investigate? Ronan asked. Coulson shook his head with a smile, stood up and said, "Excuse me, sir, maybe we will meet again in a while." Sitting in the car, Coulson took out a blank report and wrote down his evaluation of Ronan. Seeing a person clearly through short exchanges is a compulsory course for agents, and Coulson thinks his evaluation is quite pertinent. Tony opened the suitcase and saw the scorched uniform of Soldier 76. He was surprised. "Oh. What did you do with it?" Luo Ning expressed helplessness. "It was bombarded, can it be repaired?" At a glance, it can be seen that the metal of the battle suit has been punctured, the internal system has collapsed, not to mention the outer layer of fabric, which has been blown to pieces. Parts of the core are broken. I think it's easier to redo one than to repair it. Tony felt that 2 sets of uniforms could be made in the repair time. "Mr. Stark, I think the metal can be thickened," Thomas suggested. Looking at his not-so-strong physique, Tony asked, aggravated, "Can you run?" "This suit doesn't have a jet, and it's driven entirely by its own strength. I've been working out in the gym these days." Thomas bent his arms and tried to show off his biceps, but he didn't have much muscle, like a gentle hill. "Then thicken it by 2 millimeters. 5 millimeters. 5 millimeters. Tony looked at his firm face. "It's fine, I won't be responsible for the weight." "Then trouble Mr. Stark, try to use as hard metal as possible." Thomas leaned over slightly. "He doesn't have the speed of Soldier 76, and he will still be shot while running in battle. Instead of doing this, it's better not to dodge like Iron Man, but to use his body to resist directly, so that he can also ensure the maximum attack frequency. Don't worry, the metal I used for you is exactly the same as the Mark IV. In other words, with the addition of 5 millimeters, the defense will almost catch up with the Mark V. Are you going to be an Iron Man in the shape of Soldier 76? Tony asked. Almost. Thomas scratched his head and smiled innocently. Thomas took the suitcase aside and clapped his hands. "That's it." Luo Ning took out a manuscript from his briefcase. "Here. Iron Man script. If there are any unsatisfactory parts, we can discuss and make changes." Tony became interested, picked up the script and read it, and felt a sense of déjà vu. He quickly realized, isn't this something I have personally experienced? Then I polished it up and turned it into a movie script. Don't you think this story is cool? I created it after collecting a lot of related news and adding my own ideas. Luo Ning said. But everyone knows my experience. Will the film be popular? Believe me, they will. They only know the general process, but they don't know the details, and then use special effects to render it, tisk. That is definitely a visual shock. Luo Ning was intoxicated. And make a movie based on your experience, which is equivalent to an autobiography in the form of a movie. When you get old and can't move it, you can proudly tell your children, look. That's something that Dad has personally experienced, yes, don't you feel it very much? He continued to flicker. Tony nodded, as if that was the case. Recording his past in the form of a movie, which is well known to the public and can be reminisced when he is old, seems to be quite good. But I think it needs to be changed here, look. Tony pointed to a certain part of the script for Ronan to read. I don't think so. There is also something illogical here that needs to be changed. I don't think so. Here, I don't think so. Tony raised several points that he thought were inappropriate, but they were ruthlessly rejected by Luo Ning. He was in an extremely mood at the moment. Didn't it mean that he had something he was not satisfied with and could discuss and make changes? Hello. Seeing his tangled face, Luo Ning said in relief. Tony, what you said really cannot be changed. I am the screenwriter and I know the audience's preferences best, so please trust me. Okay, when will the filming start? Facing this talented screenwriter, Tony didn't have the courage to refute. Since he couldn't change the script according to his wishes, he could only hope that the filming would start sooner. During this period of time, I felt uncomfortable and wanted to find something to do for myself. Tomorrow, Luo Ning said smoothly. Tomorrow. Tony was stunned for a moment. Although he couldn't wait to film, he didn't need to be in such a hurry. Why did he feel that Ronan was even more anxious than him? Shortly after the premiere of Winston, the filming of Iron Man started immediately, which was frighteningly efficient. The actors have already been selected, because the style of Soldier 76 Feet is very similar to that of Iron Man, which happens to be directed by Hopkins, so this movie is still directed by director Hopkins. Ronan said. Seriously, the pace caught Tony off guard. I don't have any money, so of course I have to film. If I don't film, I have no money. Only by filming can I barely make ends meet. Luo Ning said. Tony really wants to say, are you kidding me? There is still no money to shoot two popular movies all over the world. Being in such a hurry to make a movie must be crazy about making money. I have already forgotten the original intention of making a movie. Well, it seems that Luo Ning's original intention of making Soldier 76 Inches was also to make money, to revitalize the family business. It seems that all filmmakers make movies to make money, not to generate electricity for love. Only money has motivation. Ronan made money, so there was a greater incentive to make movies, and that must have been the case. Okay, what do I need to do to prepare? Director Hopkins will contact you tomorrow. You just need to bring yourself with you. Luo Ning replied. Don't you have Mark 1? How could Mark 1 be used in the early stage of filming? It's still early. Do you think the film can be finished in one day? That's right. Tony nodded, looked at Luo Ning. Aren't you going? The company is very busy. I will go to the set to see when I have time. In fact, he was just looking for an excuse for his laziness. Since the company was too lazy to go, he was even more reluctant to go to the set. It would be nice to visit once in a while. After talking about the business, Luo Ning returned home and continued to salt fish. Thomas's free daily life is to go to the gym to exercise. Originally, Luo Ning wanted to go with him, but he was eventually defeated by lazy cancer. There is no progress in the matter of moving. Even if they move, those who want to mess with him will try their best to get his address. Why don't they just stay in this familiar place, where the scenery is good and the noise is not noisy? If you are used to going to a strange place, you will always feel unaccustomed, and it will take a long time to get used to it. It just so happens that there is nothing to do these days, so Luo Ning just stays at home, eats, sleeps and plays games. This is the daily schedule. Heart wide and fat. On a certain day, Luo Ning felt something incredible awakened in his body. To be precise, it awakened his appetite and became very edible. Like the 7-layer beef burger, he couldn't even finish one before, but now he can eat 5, and there are fried eggs, more than a dozen are not enough to fit between his teeth. Suffering from polyphagia. Polyphagia is not so terrible, it feels like the stomach is swollen several times. For this reason, he asked the best doctor in the United States to come to see him, and they all said that he was in good health, no problem, and even told him that eating is a blessing. Luo Ning was speechless. Have you ever seen something so edible? Eat a week's worth of food in half a day, so eating like this will definitely bring you blessings and not sickness. Chapter 31. Confirming that this is not a disease, Luo Ning had no choice but to control his appetite with subjective consciousness, forcing himself not to eat so much, and with the help of strong willpower, he returned to the previous appetite. Well, the imagination is full, but the reality is skinny. In fact, he ate more than ever before, fearing some terrible disease, and the fear of death had forced him to suppress his appetite. After confirming that it was not a disease, he became even more unscrupulous, eating whatever he wanted, eating while lying down, eating while sitting, eating while leaning on him, eating while watching movies, eating while playing games, eating while listening to music. I haven't heard from my mouth 24 hours a day, and even dreamed of eating while sleeping, chewing air in my mouth with my eyes closed. There was no food in the refrigerator at all, and Thomas immediately asked Thomas to buy a bunch of food back after eating. Thomas was very surprised at one point, and stared at him after eating, and he was full, but he got used to it after a while, thinking that superheroes consume a lot of energy and need to replenish energy. But what Luo Ning wants to say is, I haven't transformed in the past month, and I rarely go out. I stay at home and eat, and I don't exercise. My digestion is really fast, and I never feel full. More than 10 minutes. The strange thing is that he didn't break his stomach, and his stomach was flat as usual. Could it be that the first level stomach has been upgraded to the third level stomach, and the digestive system has also been upgraded from the first level to the third level? I don't want to eat anymore. Luo Ning had a mournful face. Although he said so, his body was very honest. He grabbed the roast duck and gnawed it, not just sauce or something. His mouth was full of oil. If someone saw it and took a picture of it, it would definitely hit the headlines. Shocking. The CEO of Overwatch Films, Luo Ning, was reincarnated as a starving ghost, eating a whole roast duck at home without any image. Ronan even thought of the title for them. Thomas sat next to him and stared at him with a shocked gaze. Without blinking, he looked stupid. In the past, my husband ate lettuce and tomato sauce very politely, but now he picked up the whole roast duck and put it in his mouth. It would be understandable if he hadn't eaten for 3 days, but he eats like this every day, not to mention his stomach can't stand it. Isn't your mouth sleepy from chewing? I look so tired. I eat 12 hours a day without rest for a month, my teeth are so good. Thomas couldn't help swallowing, saving lunch again. Ronan. There was a scream, and Luo Ning was dumbfounded just as he took a bite. Lucy stood at the door with a terrified expression, as if seeing a demon that eats people without spitting out bones. No, it's even scarier than that. Oh, my God. The aroma of various foods is mixed in the room. One of them is very fragrant, but it is very pungent when mixed together. Lucy looked at the table of food that made people's heart tremble, and made a sound of surprise. Who starved you like this? Lucy stared at Thomas with a knife-like gaze. Thomas waved his hand quickly. Assistant Barrent, it's not me. It may be that the husband is in a good mood today, so he eats more. How could this be blamed on him? If it wasn't for his bad taste and lack of color, fragrance, and taste, I guess the husband would have eaten him. Luo Ning put half a roast duck on the plate, took off the disposable gloves, took a few paper towels to wipe his mouth clean, and smiled at Lucy. I went to the gym with Thomas for a long time in the morning, and I'm too hungry. Hungry? Lucy frowned. No matter how hungry you are, you can't eat like this. The meals on this table are enough for a dozen people. There are so many types that you can choose to eat, and it's impossible for me to eat them all. Luo Ning said. Then are you full now? If you're not full, I'll wait until you're full before we talk about business. Lucy threw the purse on the sofa and sat down. Of course I'm full, I'm not a pig. Luo Ning said with a smile. Goo, goo, what sound? Lucy looked around blankly. Goo. After ringing again, her eyes fell on Luo Ning's stomach. Her eyes were as big as a copper bell. Luo Ning clutched his stomach. He really wanted to find a hole in the ground to get in, it was so embarrassing. God, can you stop playing with me like this? Thomas covered his face with his hands and held back his smile. As a full-time driver, he must never laugh at the boss unless he couldn't help it. Ha ha ha. Thomas laughed so hard that Luo Ning's face darkened, and he said in a deep voice, Thomas, 10% of your salary will be deducted this month. Hearing this, Thomas immediately stopped laughing and wanted to cry instead. Luo Ning forced a smile, endured his hunger, and said to Lucy, Lucy, what's the matter? Blizzard Entertainment agreed to split. They also plan to buy the right to use Winston's movie image, including all Overwatch heroes that may appear in the future. From what their vice president said, it seems that they want to sign a long-term contract, so the vice president wants to schedule an appointment with you. Lucy said slowly, and didn't have time to worry about whether Luo Ning was hungry or not. This matter is the current major event of Overwatch Pictures. If the negotiation is successful, it can be said that they have formed a cooperative relationship with Blizzard Entertainment. Whether it is mutually beneficial and win-win or pitting each other depends on how the two parties do it. I'll call you when I have time. Luo Ning couldn't help it anymore. The delicious meat and sweet pastries on the table were very attractive to him. It was obvious that the meeting would collapse if he was in this state to discuss business. Can't you give a letter of approval? She came here in person to reflect the importance of this matter, but she didn't expect the boss to be so perfunctory. If you have time at home, don't you have time to talk about cooperation? I'm not feeling well these days. Luo Ning couldn't bear it, so he had no choice but to pick up a piece of cake and fill his hunger first. Lucy saw his attitude, so she didn't want to sit down. She was worried about the company, but the boss ignored the company's affairs. Well, since the boss doesn't care, then she will no matter what love is. Uncomfortable and still have such a good appetite, go cheat ghosts. Lucy walked out angrily carrying the leather bag, and Luo Ning immediately picked up the half piece of roast duck and continued to eat it. Thomas had a disgusted look on his face. He couldn't bear to look at the sight of eating, and couldn't stand the smell in the room, so he ran out to get some air. The air is still fresh outside. Thomas took a deep breath, feeling that his whole body was washed by nature. Luo Ning ate all the food on the table in a flurry of wind and clouds, and the long-lost feeling of fullness finally came again. Lying on the sofa and resting, it is more fulfilling than ever. Life is about eating and drinking. After taking a nap for less than 10 minutes, I suddenly opened my eyes. The heat in the body has reached the standard, and Winston's transformation has been activated. Leaning forward suddenly, Luo Ning sat on the sofa with his back straight, dazed. Suddenly, I want to cry but have no tears. Winston's activation method is too weird. The traversers of other people's family can gain power without any effort, so why do they have to endure so much pain when they come to him? Malibu Street. A black supercar and a black car were parked outside the luxury villa. A man in a suit got off the black car. He took off his sunglasses and smiled at Happy, who was standing next to the supercar. Long time no see, Mr. Hogan. Happy smiled perfunctorily. He didn't like to see these self-proclaimed SHIELD agents. He thought he was great, but in fact he was really great. At this time Tony came out, and Coulson went up to meet him, and said with a smile, "Forgive me for coming uninvited, Mr. Stark." After the director's evaluation of the two people's comprehensive quality evaluation, it was decided that Tony was more suitable to serve as a consultant of SHIELD. Agent Coulson, I'm going to the set to film now, maybe I don't have time to invite you in. Tony straightened his collar and continued to walk forward. He should have left earlier so that he would not run into this annoying guy. Filming. Coulson thought he had heard wrong. I don't know. The Iron Man movie has been filming for a month, and it's progressing smoothly. If there are no accidents, you will be able to see my style on the screen in 4 months. Tony said. I am looking forward. Coulson blocked his way. But sir, I have something very important to talk to you about. Tony frowned. 3 minutes. For him now, apart from the affairs of his own group, other things are not as important as filming, including invitations from both the military and the government. Coulson sorted out his language, and said concisely, after SHIELD's assessment of you, sir, you have met our requirements, so SHIELD specially invites you to serve as a consultant for SHIELD. As soon as the words fell, Tony said, I'm not interested, find someone else. Coulson was dumbfounded. The rejection was too straightforward. Didn't he even need to think at all? The consultant position of SHIELD is as worthless as a dishwasher, and SHIELD is not taken seriously. Seeing his appearance, Tony frowned and said, should I thank SHIELD for taking a fancy to me, and then fill out an application form and go to work? But I'm sorry, I don't have the time. God, with such a big name in the SHIELD Bureau, there should be no shortage of consultants, right? At least I'm not missing one. I don't know anything. I really don't know how Director Fury likes me. After speaking, he glanced at his watch. It's time, goodbye. Then he got into Happy's car and sped away, hearing Coulson's heart-piercing, wait, from afar. Coulson fell into self-doubt. Tony seemed to dislike SHIELD, but he couldn't figure it out. SHIELD consultants and actors, no matter how they were compared, SHIELD consultants had an advantage. A gust of wind blew, and Coulson stood beside the car, messed up in the wind, and then he sighed, the next best thing is to find a hot guy. Thinking of someone with extremely poor quality, he sighed for a while, but he had no choice but to complete the task. Shaking his head helplessly, it felt like he was asking someone to be a consultant to SHIELD, which was too out of class. Tired, the last ray of sunlight dissipated, and the sky suddenly darkened. Coulson felt light rain falling on his head. He rubbed his loose hair and sighed heavily. If he had more hair, he could still block the rain, but he was destined can't grow thick hair. Open the door and get in the car, and drive to that place without love. There was light rain falling in the sky, but Luo Ning's heart was clear, and he finally got rid of the overeating, and his life returned to a normal rhythm. What Lucy said last time must also be taken seriously. After all, Blizzard Entertainment is a global game company, and there is a lot of money to cooperate with it. Hey Lucy, help me contact Blizzard's vice president, Mr. Moulton, and see when he is free. Let's talk about cooperation. The sun is coming out from the west. Lucy teased, and then said seriously, okay, let me ask you. Lucy called back after a while. Mr. Moulton is watching a car race abroad today, and he will return home tomorrow. He will contact us then. Well, I didn't expect him to be a racing fan. After hanging up the phone, Luo Ning suddenly realized something. The racing competition, wouldn't it be the F1 Monaco Grand Prix? After checking on the internet, I realized that the F1 Monaco Grand Prix is still far away, and he was worrying too much. Turn on the TV. As a good citizen of society, it is very necessary to know the hot news at any time. A beautiful hostess announced with a clean voice. The explosion shocked the campus. A mysterious incident occurred in the laboratory of Corvo University. A green monster appeared, laboratory equipment was found on the scene, physical evidence was found, hair, gamma saliva, the target fled on sight. Seeing this news and the looming green figure, Luo Ning couldn't sit still. Hulk appeared. To be honest, he wasn't ready yet. Not long after being salted in the Marvel world, the first danger came. Although it has nothing to do with him now, the Hulk and the Abomination will fight in New York. I can't remember the specific area. Moreover, the script may not be completely developed according to the movie, and all variables are possible. He is like a butterfly. Flapping his wings inadvertently can change the original trajectory of the Marvel world, thus bringing about huge changes. For example, Banner may be a fan of Overwatch pictures, so he happened to come to New York to find information about him. After the event, he couldn't help but go to the cinema to watch the new movie, Winston, of Overwatch pictures. These are all possible, so the plot may not necessarily develop according to the original plot. You have to prepare for the worst. If Hulk and the Abomination fight in Manhattan, it will be bad, and the watchtower may not be safe. The building can be rebuilt if it is destroyed, but the company stores a lot of information. If it is destroyed, it will be a heavy blow to the company. Worse still, hitting at his door would directly threaten his life. So he had to think about countermeasures, and he couldn't sit still. Luo Ning took a deep breath. Maybe he was a little unfounded. How could it be such a coincidence? If they really hit the watchtower, Stark Tower is not far away, Tony will definitely come forward to deal with them. But it's still a problem whether it can be done. The physical defense of Hulk and Abomination has almost reached max. Iron Man's recoil particle beam and missiles seem to be unable to cause substantial damage to them. Maybe they will be ganged up by two big guys and attack. Don't be smashed into a discus. Thinking of it as a big head. Mr. Luo Ning, we meet again. Just when he was annoyed, that annoying guy came again, annoyance after annoyance. Luo Ning opened the door and said irritably, I have to go to the company in a hurry. I'll give you 3 minutes. If you have anything to say, hurry up. Quote. Coulson's head was covered with black lines, and the smile on his face disappeared instantly. As a professionally trained agent, he was determined not to show his true emotions, so Coulson still curled the corners of his mouth and smiled. Mr. Luo Ning, since your quality and performance have met the requirements, we are specially invited by S.H.I.E.L.D. You're a S.H.I.E.L.D. advisor. Wow, I can't even finish the company's affairs and I want to go to S.H.I.E.L.D. as a consultant. No. Luo Ning doesn't know how to do the job of looking for guilt. He doesn't even want to take care of his own company. How can he still work for S.H.I.E.L.D.? It is impossible to work part-time, and it is impossible to work part-time in this life. Sir, it doesn't affect you or anything. You don't have to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. like us, Coulson said. It means to put a name on it. Then I won't go. Well, I have to go. Luo Ning held up his umbrella and walked out. Coulson was also helpless. It seemed that S.H.I.E.L.D. was forcing him to be a consultant. You must know that there are countless people outside who want to work for S.H.I.E.L.D., even as a cleaner. Ronan walked out awkwardly, as if he didn't intend to go to the company, so he didn't call Thomas. Mr. is going to the company. Then I will give you a ride. Luo Ning cocked his mouth and got into Coulson's car. Sir, do you know that the world is gradually becoming less peaceful? Coulson said while driving. I know, that's why I have Iron Man and Soldier 76. They can deal with all dangers. By the way, there are you. I almost forgot about the #1 shield in the universe. Ronan tapped his head. Hearing his jokes about shield, Coulson was very dissatisfied. No, it's not enough, you don't know what's going to happen in this world. You know, just guessing. That's right, can the guess be taken seriously? The green monster on the news, sir, do you know? It's just a bigger and greener Shrek. Hearing this metaphor, the corners of Coulson's eyes twitched. Such a terrifying monster spoke so lightly. Okay, Luo Ning felt that the route was a bit wrong. This is not the car for the company. Coulson smiled slyly. I'm sorry Mr. Luo Ning, the director wants to get to know you. But I don't want to know your chief, and do you know that I go to the company to discuss a business worth tens of millions? Luo Ning didn't expect this guy to be so vicious, and he really did everything he could to abduct him to S.H.I.E.L.D. Based on this, don't even think about pulling him into S.H.I.E.L.D. in this life. Maybe he will kidnap all those superheroes to Overwatch and call you arrogant. Compared with tens of millions of business, I think this matter is still important. Coulson didn't believe that he went to the company to discuss business. He didn't even call the driver. It was just a temporary excuse to avoid him. He was still too young to deceive a senior agent. But it takes at least 3 hours from New York to Washington, and I'm going to throw up. The director is in New York, so you don't have to worry, sir. The car stopped in front of a coffee shop. Under Coulson's watchful eyes, Luo Ning put away the umbrella at the door, walked in, and saw a bald, one-eyed black man sitting there in the distance. Coulson didn't come in, and stood outside to observe the surrounding situation. I have long admired your name, Mr. Luo Ning. Nick Fury took the initiative to show his favor, and Ronan put away his restless little emotions, and let them be at ease when they come. He might as well take this opportunity to make things clear, so that these guys don't haunt him like ghosts all day long. Director Fury is the real big shot. I, a filmmaker, can't stand up to your praise. Luo Ning sat down. Waiter, make a latte, thank you. Nick Fury smiled at him. The latte in this store is delicious. But I like tea. Nick Fury spread his hands. Then I may not be able to satisfy you. Let's talk about what Agent Coulson is going to do to bring me here. If you want me to be a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. Excuse, in fact I am not interested in the position of consultant, I just want to manage my own company. Luo Ning didn't have time to chat with him here, so he left as soon as possible after the conversation. Nick Fury took a sip of coffee and nodded. Well, I like the straight-to-the-point character. It doesn't matter if you are a consultant or not, but there is one thing I hope Mr. can understand. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been established to deal with all kinds of unpredictable. It may be difficult to stop the threat when it is formed, so we usually kill the threat in the cradle when it is still a sapling to minimize the harm. So are you talking to me? I don't know what you mean by that. I just know that I'm an ordinary person, at most a rich man with a reputation. I also hate crimes, Luo Ning said slowly. When the power is still weak, people can control it very well, but when the power grows to a certain level, the power will control people in turn. Luo Ning frowned. What are you talking about? In fact, he knows what Nick Fury wants to express, but he has to pretend that he doesn't understand anything. I hope your performance will be consistent with your behavior, and not suddenly surprise me. Nick Fury said. It is true that Luo Ning has no tendency to break the law and commit crimes. As for the enhanced serum, it is just their wishful thinking. However, he knew that General Ross had a super soldier plan, perhaps influenced by the movie Soldier 76. It is probably because of this movie that General Ross came up with the idea of studying the super soldier serum. Later, Soldier 76 was born out of nowhere and descended into the real world, showing his power to the world. General Ross became crazy and bewildered because of this. He was eager to master a powerful army composed of Soldiers 76, so he did not hesitate to use a lot of manpower and material resources to study the serum that did not exist at all, so he created a monster. The green monster was extremely destructive and disappeared without a trace. This was a potential threat. S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to help investigate, but was flatly rejected by General Ross. Since the military did not provide any information, S.H.I.E.L.D. had no choice but to wait, waiting for good news to come, or waiting for disaster to erupt. He saw the ambition of General Ross. Even if he knew that the super soldier project had failed, out of his desire for a powerful army, he would capture the green monster and continue to study it. By then, thousands of green monsters would be produced. The world will be in chaos. Monsters don't follow orders. Before this matter is resolved, he doesn't want Luo Ning to make any more troubles, and take charge of the company well. This is his only hope for Luo Ning. Luo Ning smiled slightly. I wish I could become extraordinary, but that's unlikely, and that's what I've been doing all my life, and I've been guarding the company for a lifetime of stability. Okay then, don't let me ever hear anyone say, oh, I saw a gorilla running down the street. Nick Fury danced and gestured, and the gorilla was 99% similar. Luo Ning nodded, thinking that you might be disappointed. He might really turn into Winston due to helplessness, but he also hoped that the outside world would not create opportunities for him to transform, so as not to be caught by Fury again. The chief invites you for coffee. Peace is the truth. He doesn't want to be involved in all kinds of dangerous disturbances. Brazil, Roshina slum. A worker in the bottling plant accidentally cut his finger, and a drop of blood fell. The worker's expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "Stop! Stop!" He quickly ran down, found his own drop of blood on the transmission belt and wiped it off, and then glued his wounds together, only then breathed a sigh of relief. However, what he didn't expect was that besides this drop of blood, there was another drop of blood that had fallen into a bottle of guarana soda. These sodas were exported from Brazil to the United States, and the bottle of guarana soda with blood appeared in a supermarket in Milwaukee and was bought. When the man opened the refrigerator to take out the bottle of soda and took a sip, he immediately had a strange reaction, like convulsions, and finally fell down at home. After forensic identification, the deceased was suspected to have been infected by gamma. The news fell into the ears of General Ross, who immediately found out the origin of the bottle of soda, Port Verde, Brazil. He immediately sent someone to the bottling plant there to find a white man, and ordered to catch him alive, use a tranquilizer gun, and not be found by the white man, or he would run away. They went to arrest, not only failed to catch the traitor who the general said had stolen military secrets, but also left an indelible shadow in their hearts, because they saw a green monster. That monster is extremely powerful. Hitting him with an anesthesia gun is like hitting an iron plate. Even if the gun is live, it can't hurt it, just like a steel giant. Banner was desperate. His computer was taken away by those guys, and Mr. Lan couldn't be contacted. The only thing that can be done is to go to the United States and go to the office of Betty Rose of Corvo University to copy that document. Mr. Lan needs these materials. As long as he has these materials, Mr. Lan has a high probability of completely eliminating the diseased cells infected by gamma in his body, so that he can return to a normal life and no longer need to run around. For the future, Banner decided to give it a go. Corvo University, Virginia. Banner sat on the bench and hesitated for a while, and went downstairs to the teaching building, but in the corridor, he found that the passing students had to show their ID cards, so he turned around and left. At night, he came to Stanley's Pizza. The owner Stan was his old acquaintance. After spending the night, he changed into a delivery man's outfit and rode a bicycle to Corvo University with some pizzas. He bribed the doorman with a pizza and successfully went upstairs. Came to Betty's office, sat in front of the computer, but he searched many keywords, but couldn't find the file, so he started encrypted remote chat, told Mr. Lan that he couldn't find the file, and Mr. Lan said that if he couldn't find the file, then nothing can be done. Back at the pizzeria, Banner met his girlfriend Betty Ross. It turned out that Betty had already transferred the information to the USB flash drive. Banner was overjoyed. With the information, he could become a normal person. The next day, Banner decided to go to Mr. Lan. On the green grass in front of the university, Banner and Betty said goodbye reluctantly. Banner suddenly spotted a few soldiers, and then several jeeps drove up slowly, and even sent high-tech weapons such as sonic cannons. Banner ran to the university, the soldiers chased him closely, and fled to the overpass, only to find that both sides of the overpass were blocked by soldiers and he could not escape. On the orders of General Ross, 2 soldiers stood under the bridge and fired 2 tear gas canisters towards the bridge. Smoke shrouded the overpass, and the inside was as calm as water, but after a short period of calm, there was a violent storm. Banner felt the crisis, so the Hulk in his body took over his body. A green monster appeared in the overpass. The soldiers were stunned, but the predecessor of the Abomination, Emil Bronsky, smiled. The monster finally appeared. He must wash away his previous humiliation this time, relying on the serum injected by General Ross, which strengthened his physique. Betty looked at the monster on the bridge in disbelief. She couldn't believe that the monster was Bruce. Hulk broke through the glass of the overpass, jumped down, and smashed those troop vehicles into scrap iron under the firepower. Even the invincible tank was smashed by Hulk's punch and couldn't move. At this time, 2 college students from Corvo just passed by. They were stunned to see this scene, and quickly took pictures with their mobile phones and uploaded them to YouTube. At this time, 2 vehicles loaded with sonic cannons drove over. Under the strong sound wave impact, Hulk was unable to move an inch and was paralyzed by the shock. The angry Hulk held up 2 thick iron sheets to block the sound waves, and flung them vigorously. One of the iron sheets flew out and directly blew up one car, and then he leapt vigorously and smashed the other car into scrap iron. Seeing this scene, the soldiers fled. This monster is not something they can deal with. Even a sonic weapon can't do anything to him. What else can stop it? While the other soldiers scrambled for their lives, only Emil Bronsky walked towards the Hulk empty-handed. Bronsky, retreat, come back. Blonsky ignored the officer's order and took off the headset connected to the walkie-talkie. He raised his head, stared at Hulk with disdain, and taunted, "That's it? Is that all you need?" With his physique strengthened, he floated away, and even dared to confront the Hulk head-on, who gave him the confidence. Hulk kicked out, and Bronsky shot out like a cannonball. After rolling in midair for an unknown number of times, he hit a tree, and his face was covered with blood. Invisible pretense, the most deadly. General Ross realized that they couldn't deal with this big guy with their current firepower, so he ordered to retreat, but Betty walked over. She believed that Banner would not hurt her, and she hoped that Banner would see that she could change back to herself. At this time a helicopter flew up and opened fire on the ground. Hulk opened his arms to protect Betty inside, and the bullets poured into his back. Hulk was so angry that he threw out the last piece of iron and shot down the helicopter. The helicopter fell and exploded, and the flames burned, forming a small sea of flames. Seeing his daughter engulfed in flames, General Ross was annoyed, but powerless, knowing that he should never have let the helicopter fire. The clear sky suddenly darkened, thunder rolled, and heavy rain poured down. The crazily burning flames quickly subsided, revealing the scene inside. A few wisps of stubborn flames continued to burn, and the scorched Hulk hugged Betty, looking at General Ross angrily, with that ferocious face and flaming eyes, as if he was about to kill someone. Seeing that his daughter was still alive and not burned to ashes, General Ross had mixed feelings and didn't know what to do for a while. Just like that in the heavy rain, watching Hulk take his daughter away. Rumors of a fierce battle between the military and an unknown enemy continued to spread on the campus of Corvo University, and 2 sophomores witnessed the entire incident. The screen was cut by the host to the 2 college students. "That guy is huge, like a green giant." A fat man in a blue t-shirt gestured. The picture taken by the students was displayed. The camera shook slightly, the surroundings were in chaos, the soldiers were fighting in a panic, and the surrounding vehicles emitted black smoke. The scene returned to the host. One of the students is a reporter for the school newspaper. He took these pictures with his mobile phone. There was a thunderstorm in the national forest, which delayed the search for the mysterious Hulk. Things developed faster than Luo Ning expected. Next, Banner and Betty will go to uptown New York to find Mr. Blue, and Banner will be captured by General Ross, and Bronsky will threaten Mr. Land to inject him with Banner's blood, and hatred is born. After that, the battle between Hulk and the Abomination will break out. Uptown New York includes the bustling urban areas including Manhattan. Thinking of this, Ronan couldn't sit still. He had to do something. The Hulk and the Abomination battle will always involve civilians. The key is that his watchtower is not ruined by these 2 hunks. It's already afternoon, it's almost evening, I don't know if it's too late, but no matter what, I have to give it a try. Before that, he called Lucy and asked the company employees to get off work early and stay at home instead of going out if they had nothing to do. Home is safer than outside. But where is Mr. Lan? It seems that the movie didn't mention where Mr. Lan is, or did he forget? But since Mr. Lan is a well-known doctor, there should be his information on the internet. Google searched for Samuel Stern, and it really showed his entry. After reading the information, he took Tony's remade Soldier 76 suit and drove to the destination alone. This trip is too dangerous, he can protect himself, others may not be able to. The distance is not too far, but it gets dark as we walk, and the darker the sky, the more uneasy I feel. Before reaching the destination, the road ahead was blocked by iron jeeps. Police lights flashing. The local police station is also assisting the army to arrest Banner, and at the same time evacuate the crowd, and the crowd is not allowed to approach. Luo Ning patted his head, it seemed that he was a step late. But you still have to try your best, what if Bronsky doesn't get in? Park the car aside, slide the thumbs of both hands on the box, and then strips of blue veins emerge, and with a click, the suit box opens. Fortunately, I asked Tony how to open the suitcase, otherwise he would not be able to use it. Putting on the uniform and transforming into Soldier 76 at the same time, with the defense of Iron Man and the speed and physical strength of Soldier 76, it should not be difficult to rush over. As soon as he thought of this, Luo Ning rushed over like a wild horse with his head in his arms. When he appeared in the police's field of vision, the policeman's eyes widened. What did they see? Soldier 76. But even Soldier 76 can't rush in for no reason. Now is an extraordinary moment, and there is no room for sloppy. I'll count to 3, and if we don't stop, we're going to shoot. The policemen raised their pistols. 3, 2, 1, bang bang bang. The bullet hit Luo Ning like a steel plate, leaving behind a policeman with a confused face. What, is this Soldier 76 or Iron Man? Or a combination of the two? Breaking through the obstruction of the outer police, Luo Ning reached the interior, but saw 2 soldiers carrying out the fainted Banner. Not good. According to the development of the plot, Bronsky is now threatening Mr. Lan. The soldiers were stunned for 2 seconds, including General Ross. Why did Soldier 76 come here? The most perfect super soldier in his impression. The Super Soldier project was inspired by Soldier 76. As long as the serum that strengthens the body can be developed, an iron-blooded army can be created. From then on, his reputation as General Thunderbolt will resound throughout the world. Now we are not far from that goal. Stop him, General Ross ordered. After hearing this, the soldiers immediately surrounded Luo Ning, raising their guns instead of shooting, just to restrict his movements. I'm sorry. Luo Ning rushed in like a wild bull, and several soldiers were directly knocked away. Go upstairs to Mr. Lan's laboratory. Oh, my God. After all, it was still a step too late. Mr. Lan fell to the ground bleeding from his head, and there was disgust in front of him, a huge and ugly man. The spines stretch out, and the thick bones on the chest are faintly visible. He looks stronger than Hulk, and he still has a bald head. Ronan stood in front of Abomination, looking straight up. He could only see between Abomination's legs. Without hesitation, he raised his pulse rifle and shot at that place, not knowing whether this part belonged to the weak point of the Abomination. Hating the pain, he covered his crotch with one hand, and punched him with the other fist. Luo Ning rolled, and the floor was directly smashed through by the punch. Soldier 76, let me see who is the super soldier. Luo Ning walked around and made crazy pulse shots, and said while shooting, you little chick looks real, and you are still a soldier. Don't take a pee to see what kind of virtue you are now. The bullet hit Abomination, and clear blue bullet holes emerged, but almost instantly, those bullet holes healed. Sure enough, Soldier 76 still couldn't deal with the Abomination. It seemed that he had to borrow Winston's power. General Ross's subordinates chased after them. They stared at Soldier 76 dumbfounded, and then stared at the monster with extremely horrified eyes. The strong have the right to speak, the weak do not. Angrily, the hate raised its giant foot and stepped on Ronan. Go, this is not something you can handle. Luo Ning turned around and said something to them, then rolled over, avoiding the stampede of the abomination, but was a little uncomfortable from the shock. This guy's strength is too strong. How can you back down as a soldier? Guys, hit me hard. Although I don't know what the situation is, one thing is certain, Soldier 76 will not harm them, but this monster will. Countless bullets poured on the abomination. If the energy bullets could make the abomination suffer, then these bullets were no different from scratching an itch. Give me death. The hatred swiftly swung a punch, covering the sky and the sun. The soldiers stared wide-eyed, feeling the despair they couldn't hide. However, at this moment, they seemed to be blocked by some large object in front of them, and their eyes were completely dark. Game time is over. Ronan transformed into Winston, his left hand firmly grasping the fist of hatred. Go, don't make meaningless sacrifices, Luo Ning said back. Seeing this gorilla, the soldiers were all surprised and murmured, Winston. Then they hurried downstairs. It is true that ordinary soldiers cannot participate in a battle of this level, and they have to seek support from the chief. Hate was also taken aback, looked at the gorilla with black-rimmed glasses in front of him, and said hoarsely, Who the hell are you? Luo Ning's figure moved back slightly, unexpectedly. Even Winston's strength was not as strong as hatred. My name is King of Thunder and Lightning. Luo Ning raised the Tesla cannon with his right hand, applied the maximum ampere current, and pulled the trigger, buzzing. Brilliant blue electric current escaped from the muzzle, covering the body of the loathsome. Loathing suddenly felt itchy all over, and felt a little tingling. Smelly orangutan, how dare you discharge me? He jumped up, smashed the wall and fell downstairs, stepped on the jeep, looked around with ferocious eyes, and shouted, Hulk, come out. When the surrounding soldiers and police saw a monster appearing out of thin air, they panicked and took up their guns to sweep, but it didn't work, and at the same time, it angered him. Hate frantically ran towards the soldiers and policemen. With a wave of his hand, several people were sent flying, and with the sole of his feet stomping, several large cracks appeared on the ground. Luo Ning also jumped down, and found that his jumping ability had improved a lot. After all, he was an orangutan. He jumped over and raised the Tesla cannon to give the abomination an electric shock, which gave the soldiers and the police a little chance to breathe. Sir, ask for backup, there is a big monster here, like the Hulk. A soldier said on the walkie-talkie. General Ross on the helicopter frowned and glanced at Banner. Impossible, calm down first, where are you? 121st Street and northbound Broadway. Upon hearing the reply, General Ross immediately told the driver to turn around. Banner wondered, why are we going back? Without answering, General Ross continued to contact the soldiers in combat. Give me the video. The screen on the monitor showed a chaotic scene, and the citizens fled in a hurry. Not far away, a huge monster wreaked havoc. Vehicles and buildings were destroyed beyond recognition, and ordinary citizens were also implicated. Every slap of hatred, several people were killed. Soldiers and police fought back in vain, still unable to stop the hatred. It's a disaster scene. Banner glanced at it, got up immediately and walked over. He vaguely saw a monster bigger than Hulk, and immediately realized the seriousness of the problem. What is this? Your test product? Banner asked. Betty stared at her father and exclaimed, My God! What have you done? The loathsome scene was getting closer and closer, and General Ross shouted, Quickly retreat. The soldiers at the shooting scene backed up, but the abomination came striding forward, then raised a car, smashed it at them, and shouted, Give me a stronger opponent. Hulk. The picture is blurry now. The soldier in charge of communication on the helicopter looked at General Ross. Sir. General Ross didn't know what to do, so he could only shake his head. I ordered all the troops to be mobilized in Harlem. Let me go, you must let me go. Banner knew that the retreat would bring greater losses. For every second of delay, several people were killed. Only the Hulk can stop that monster. Betty took his hand and said eagerly, What are you talking about? Do you think you can control it? Banner felt like his head would explode. It's not about controlling, but using. What if it doesn't work? General Ross asked. This thing was created by us, all of us, and innocent people cannot be implicated in it. Banner looked at General Ross, then at Betty. After a pause of 2 seconds, General Ross ordered, Land near it. No, just stay aloft and open the rear hatch. Banner said. General Ross nodded. This guy is really strong, and his defense is too strong. Luo Ning shook his head. He was slightly injured by the kick of Abomination just now, and Abomination had already gone far away. Can only use this. Activate the energy backpack and rush into the air. 2 lavender tail flames pierced the sky, and then landed in front of the Abomination. The huge impact generated by the landing made the indomitable Abomination stagger back. When the soldiers, police, and civilians saw the gorilla falling from the sky, their eyes widened in disbelief. Is this Winston? Then he didn't bother to marvel, and continued to run forward, looking back from time to time. Smelly orangutan, if you stop me again, I'll tear you to pieces. Loathing stabilized his figure and stared at him fiercely. Don't make me angry. Ronan raised the Tesla cannon and released a brilliant electric current. The anger index has reached 90%. Although the electric current can't cause any damage to the Abomination, it can accumulate rage. Attacks can accumulate anger, and being beaten can also accumulate anger, and at this time, Abomination threw a right uppercut at him, and his mouth was crooked. The anger index has reached 100%. Ronan put the Tesla cannon back into his backpack, opened his arms and roared ferociously at the Abomination. His eyes flashed a golden light, his gray hair instantly turned dark red like hellfire, and his whole body was entwined with golden electric arcs. Inspire the primitive animal nature, full of strength, as if there is a fire burning in the heart. Abomination threw another punch, and Luo Ning raised his thick right arm and blocked it easily, while his left hand condensed his fist and punched him, deforming his head. Loathing was stunned for a moment. Why did this stinky orangutan suddenly become so violent, even stronger than him? Luo Ning pounced on him, pinched the hatred with his legs, rubbed it against the ground, raised the vehicle next to him, and smashed the hatred's head violently. The citizens who were desperately trying to escape stopped suddenly, and it seemed that something had fallen just now, smashing a deep hole in the ground. After a while, the Hulk crawled out of the pit, scaring them to run in a detour. Hulk shook off the dirt on his body, saw a big man in front of him, raised a car and smashed it without thinking. Luo Ning felt like he was hit by something. Although it didn't hurt, he was still upset after being hit on the head. Who is so crazy? Taking advantage of this moment, Hate kicked his foot and kicked Ronan away. Ronan flew upside down and seemed to hit something. Looking back, hey, it turned out to be Hulk. Not afraid of godlike opponents, but of pig-like teammates. Hulk looked at him unkindly, and raised his fist to punch him. Just when Ronan was considering whether to fight back, the Abomination suddenly rushed up and punched Hulk away. This shit, who is the teammate? Hulk, you're finally here. The loathing expression was slightly excited. After doubting his life, Luo Ning pounced on him again, swung his fist and beat him hard with the Abomination. Hulk got up and looked at the Abomination dejectedly, and then at Winston, a little dazed, but he still had the impression of the Abomination in the image, so he regarded the Abomination as a priority to solve. So he jumped up and joined the queue for beating the Abomination. Ronan and Hulk rode on the Abomination. You punched each other, the punches were indescribable. There were probably hundreds of punches, and the hatred was directly beaten beyond recognition. It hurts to hate, even if the defense is strong, it can't withstand the fight of these two guys. The strength is not weaker than him, and it is difficult to stand up and fight back. These two are so heavy that he can't breathe. The helicopter flew into the air, and I was stunned when I saw this scene. What's going on? Betty covered her mouth and exclaimed, Winston. General Ross couldn't figure out what was going on. It seemed that Hulk and Winston were on the same front and joined forces to deal with that ugly monster. Soldier 76 appeared just now, and now Winston appeared again. Where is this going? Unsure of the reason, General Ross felt dizzy for a while. What a joke. The bloody face of hatred suddenly became distorted. His chest suddenly stood up, and the arm that was pressed was actually lifted up, as if it swelled a circle, becoming more powerful. With a kick of his legs, he kicked Ronan and Hulk out. General Ross saw that something was wrong and ordered the machine gunner to shoot. Which one will you help? Asked the young soldier. Help the green one and the gorilla and shoot the other ugly thing. The young soldier nodded, aimed the machine gun at the Abomination, and the dense bullets shot out like a string of beads. Feeling a sharp pain, Hate blocked it with his arm, then looked up at the helicopter, and shouted angrily, General. Hearing the sound, General Ross was taken aback. Is this monster Bronski? Immediately, he was furious and slammed the handrail. Idiot. You screwed it all up. The Abomination jumped and grabbed the base of the helicopter. The helicopter suddenly lost its balance and was on the verge of falling. Hulk climbed up the tall building. Ronan stood on the ground and used the jetpack to fly up. One arm strangled the neck of the Abomination, and the other arm slammed his face with an inverted crutch. Stinky monkey, you really deserve to die. With the addition of a Winston, the helicopter is even more difficult to maintain balance, swinging in the air, as if it has a tendency to fall. You are the monkey, I am your father. Luo Ning said. Hold on, General Ross yelled. The pilot wanted to cry. He thought too, but even if the ace pilot was invited in this situation, it would not help, the power was simply insufficient. Luo Ning stared at Abomination's big hand grabbing the helicopter, hesitated for a moment, then opened his gorilla's mouth, revealing a row of sharp teeth, and bit down hard. What? Hate screamed miserably, and thick green blood flowed down his palm and dripped on his face. At the same time, he was strangled so hard that he had to let go and fall down with Winston. In midair, Luo Ning activated the jetpack and landed on the ground smoothly, but the Abomination fell heavily, smashing the ground into a deep hole. The pilot breathed a sigh of relief, but General Ross was terrified, afraid that the Abomination would attack the helicopter again, so he ordered, land down nearby. Pooh! Luo Ning spat out the green blood in his mouth, it was so sour. After the rage state ended, Ronan regained his gray hair, and the previous power that could crush mountains no longer existed. The Abomination crawled out of the pit, and Hulk seemed to see a prey, so he jumped on it hungry and fought with the Abomination. After pooing for a long time, Luo Ning finally spit out the blood in his mouth, but there was still a strange smell in his mouth, and he would not be able to eat for 3 days. Is this retribution? He has been eating and drinking for a month, and now is this going to make him unable to eat even a little food? Looking east and west, I saw a fountain. Without saying a word, he ran over to pick up the water and rinsed his mouth, no less than 10 times, took a breath, sniffed his nose and smelled it. It still smelled a little strange, but it was much better than before, at least it won't be nauseating. Hulk and the Abomination are still fighting. The Abomination pushes the Hulk against the wall, and the inverted bone spur penetrates the Hulk's body, bleeding. Hulk held on with difficulty, obviously invincible. Luo Ning couldn't help but feel dizzy. Is the hatred getting stronger, or the Hulk is too weak? But what can he do now? Take Tesla cannon to hate. It doesn't seem to have much effect, and this state can't compete with hatred, so what can he do? Fire support. General Ross commanded the army, and now killing the Abomination is the primary goal, and everything else is secondary. Bullets, shells, missiles. All kinds of ammunition poured down the back of the Abomination. Hulk was a little confused with a ferocious straight punch, then he turned around angrily and rushed over. General, I'm going to kill you. The soldiers retreated and fought, and General Ross took Betty to hide behind the soldiers. Hulk strikes. Seeing that he was about to attack Betty, Hulk was furious, clenched his fists tightly, gathered enough strength, and smashed to the ground majestically. The ground quickly cracked, and the cracks caught up with Abomination, and Abomination's legs fell into the cracks, unable to move. Abomination cast his head down for a glance, then snorted coldly, Hulk, do you think you can defeat me like this? Let me tell you. Tarzan is on top. Loathing raised his head in a panic, and saw a big guy smashed down. No, he shouted in despair, but couldn't break free for a while. He could only raise his arms, trying to block the gorilla falling from the sky. Luo Ning sat down, and a bottomless pit appeared. The hatred disappeared, and the surrounding soldiers looked at the sky in a daze. Did something fall down just now? It was dark, and I couldn't see what it was. The speed was too fast, and I felt a gust of wind blowing from afar. Not to mention them, even Luo Ning himself was afraid. He first flew into the sky with a jetpack, then aimed at the Abomination restricted by the crack, and sat down like that. During this period, his ears lost their voice for a while, and his eyes could not be opened. The gravitational potential energy of falling from a high altitude was already too high. Imagine situation. Even the hardest things will be crushed. A mere abomination, it must have been turned into meat by now. It's disgusting to think about it. It was pitch black in front of his eyes, and Luo Ning looked up, feeling like he was sitting in a well, but he was not a frog, but a gorilla. Regardless of the abomination, the jetpack activated again, sending him to the ground. Winston. When the soldiers saw that it was Winston, they immediately smiled, but they were very puzzled. Why did all the superheroes filmed by Overwatch films appear in reality? Soldier 76 was born before, and Winston turned the tide later, just like making a movie. General Ross couldn't understand why the virtual characters in the movie would frequently appear in the real world. They are all characters from the Overwatch series of movies. What's so tricky about it? Ronan grinned at them, revealing a row of teeth, which used to be very white and clean, but now they were stained green with the blood of the abomination. It was disgusting. Just when he was about to run away, Hulk suddenly rushed up and punched him. Luo Ning looked at Hulk in bewilderment. You green guy is mentally retarded, right? You can't tell if you're an enemy or a friend. Hulk looked at him fiercely, raised his fist and grunted. At this moment, Betty ran over and stood in front of Winston. Bruce, Winston is a good man. Nice guy. No problem. Hulk looked at Betty suspiciously, then at Winston, and lowered his fist. Then he looked at General Ross and the soldiers fiercely, and the soldiers backed away in fright, subconsciously raising their guns. Hulk growled at them. General Ross raised his hand to signal them to put down their guns. Hulk then lowered his head, gave Betty a tender look, then turned and ran away, disappearing into the night. Bruce, Betty yelled, full of pathos. Don't stay here for long. Luo Ning also quickly launched the jetpack and went up to the sky, slipping away. Last night, an unknown monster and an army appeared in uptown New York. The monster has been wiped out by the army, so you don't need to panic. The government is your strong backing. The host broadcasts the news, and then the screen cuts to the shooting scene. Well, I don't know who took the picture, but I was brave enough to risk my life to shoot a 30-second short film, which showed the scene of Winston, Hulk, and the Hate fighting each other. Even a close-up of Winston. There are mud horses galloping past Luo Ning's heart, and Nick Fury will definitely find him for coffee, absolutely. A few days ago, Nick Fury said that he hoped not to see a gorilla running around on the street in the future, and within a week, what he didn't want to see became a reality. The only thing that made Ronan happy was that his mouth didn't smell anymore after transforming, but he still brushed his teeth 3 times, and he didn't need to eat so much. It seemed that it was only the first time to activate Winston's transformation form, so he needed to provide so much food. Heat, after which you can transform as you wish. Oh, by the way, the vice president of Blizzard Entertainment is still waiting for him. Let Thomas send him to the company, and as soon as he entered the office, Mr. Moulton shook hands with him cordially, and his aquiline nose seemed to become more curved. Mr. Luo Ning, I'm really sorry last time. Moulton apologized. Everyone has their own business, it's nothing. Then let's talk about cooperation. Listen to my assistant, you not only want to buy the right to use the image of Soldier 76 movie, but also want to buy Winston's, and even future. Ronan asked. It can be seen that Blizzard's ambitions are very big. Seeing that Winston's premiere is still hot, Blizzard has strengthened its heart to cooperate with them. Moulton nodded. That's right. According to what I said before, the split is based on the prerequisite of signing a long-term contract. In the future, Blizzard will have the right to use its movie image for every Overwatch series movie you make. Aren't you afraid that the box office of future movies will be dismal? Luo Ning was surprised, and had to say that Blizzard was very courageous, and far-sighted. We believe in the strength of your company. Moulton smiled slightly. Every Overwatch hero is a popular IP. If they don't act first, there will definitely be other companies competing with them in the future. And the price they offered seems to be very high at the moment, but it will not be sure in the future. In order to avoid Overwatch Pictures from raising the price, it is better to sign a long-term contract at one time to avoid any worries. Luo Ning thinks it doesn't matter much, and the right to use the movie image is not the only one. He can sell it to Blizzard or other companies. The only difference is that Blizzard can be the first to eat crabs. Blizzard has a keen sense of business opportunities, and is rich enough to afford extravagance, but other companies are not so courageous. They definitely hope that Overwatch Pictures will stabilize before making a decision. This undoubtedly gave Blizzard a head start. If you think there is no problem, sir, you can take a look at the contract. Moulton took out a stack of papers from his briefcase. Luo Ning flipped through it briefly, and the densely packed characters seemed a little overwhelming. I think I can ask someone more professional to look at the contract for me. Let's do this. As long as there is no problem with the contract, I will sign and seal it, and then ask the assistant to send the contract to your company, and it will be delivered the day after tomorrow at the latest. If there is room for the contract, if I am not satisfied, I will also contact you and discuss it later. Moulton nodded with a smile, then got up and stretched out his hand. Wait for the good news. After sending Moulton away, Luo Ning rubbed the center of his brows. It was too much work to talk about cooperation, but not to mention that there was no money to be made. Only in this way could we barely make ends meet. Mr. Luo Ning, a man named Phil Coulson is looking for you. Lucy came hurriedly. Hearing this name, Luo Ning's head got bigger. The news from S.H.I.E.L.D. is really well informed. It is estimated that S.H.I.E.L.D. knew about this incident last night and went to the scene to investigate. Fortunately, he did not leave anything at the scene. Just say I'm not in the company. Luo Ning was a little annoyed. Okay. When Lucy turned around, she saw a man with a tall hairline, and she frowned slightly. Sir, isn't this bad? Coulson smiled. If I don't come in person, I might not be able to see Mr. Luo Ning. Lucy, you go out first, let me talk to him. Luo Ning said helplessly. Lucy stared at him wonderingly. This doesn't look like the boss's style. Shouldn't the boss refuse to see such impolite behavior? Well, she actually couldn't figure out what the boss was thinking, or maybe the man with a shiny forehead in front of her had a lot of background. Close the door, thank you. Coulson flashed his trademark smile. Lucy glanced at him suspiciously. This guy is really strange. He really regards this place as his home. Mr. Luo Ning, you should know what I'm here for. The director wants to see you. Coulson said. I don't know what you're talking about. Luo Ning took a sip of tea. The gorilla last night. Oh no, it was Winston. The director hopes you can explain it to him. Coulson smiled. Luo Ning put on a dazed look. Oh, you mean the one on the news? Then he shook his head. Don't you think this is ridiculous? How could Winston run out of the movie? It was definitely someone's prank. He made a very realistic costume and wore it on his body. It's such a coincidence. And if it's just a prop suit, how could it withstand the monster's fist? Didn't you find out that there is a shot dedicated to Winston? Who would want to get so close to shoot? It must be a farce. Luo Ning said angrily. Anyway, please ask Mr. Luo Ning to come with me, it will be good for you and me. Coulson said. Ever since he heard the news at the latest, he believed that Luo Ning was not an ordinary person. The birth of Soldier 76 might have been a coincidence, but if Winston came, it would not make sense to explain it by coincidence. Maybe Luo Ning has no bad intentions, but S.H.I.E.L.D. must investigate the person who controls this inexplicable power, so as not to let this hidden danger become bigger and bigger, and finally get out of hand. Still the same, S.H.I.E.L.D. will lead him to the right path first, and if he doesn't obey, he will be destroyed. Luo Ning said impatiently. If you want to talk to Soldier 76. Now that you believe that big guy is Winston, you can also talk to Winston. What do you want me for? Because they are all your masterpieces. Coulson narrowed his eyes. Okay, I'll go. Luo Ning knew that if he refused, Coulson would take tough measures, unless he transformed into Soldier 76, but in this case, everything he had done before was in vain, so let's bear with it for a while. Now he is not strong enough, it is not time for a showdown with S.H.I.E.L.D. Bumpy all the way, Coulson brought Ronan to the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, located in the Tricurved Wing building in Washington. The building is very grand. When you go in and look around, there are special agents guarding and patrolling every time you walk. The security system is watertight, and identity verification is required in some places. It can be said that the security system of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the most advanced in the whole world, and it is extremely difficult to sneak in. Maybe Ant-Man can give it a try. After all, he also sneaked into the company of Darren Krause, although it is in someone else's company. The help, but also amazing. There was a person walking towards her. She had green eyes, half-length red curly hair, and her curly figure was perfectly set off by the black tights. There are not many female agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the one with such a devil figure and pretty face can only be Natasha Romanoff. She has a well-known nickname, Black Widow. As the name suggests, she is like a spider covered with colorful patterns. It looks beautiful, but it will launch a fatal attack on you inadvertently. This woman doesn't want to be as beautiful as she looks. She has a heart that is more vicious than a spider, and she is never soft when dealing with enemies, but she still has a tender side when facing her own people, but I don't know if she is pretending. Agents of SHIELD's acting skills are top-notch, otherwise it would be difficult for them to gain the trust of others when performing certain tasks. For example, the next action of the Black Widow is likely to be close to Tony, gain Tony's trust, and then become Tony's assistant, and finally sell Tony to Nick Fury. Black Widow glanced at him, then smiled and said to Coulson, "Phil, it's pretty efficient." Coulson smiled and said, "Natasha, looking at you in such a hurry, has the director finally issued you a task?" "Even if I don't have a task, I have to go out to get some air. This place is driving me crazy, and my muscles have degenerated." Black Widow twisted her shoulders. "Let me introduce to you." Coulson was interrupted by Black Widow before he finished speaking. "You don't need to introduce me. Mr. Luo Ning's name is very famous, and I, who don't watch movies very much, know it." "You boring woman, no wonder no one wants it," Coulson said contemptuously. Black Widow seemed to be too lazy to pay attention to him, and just stared at Luo Ning with a faint smile, but Winston was so cute when he was a child. Looking forward to the next movie. After she finished speaking, she left, and Coulson muttered, "Don't you want to watch movies? You're like a fan of Overwatch." Luo Ning was complacent. He didn't expect Overwatch's movies to be so popular. There are fans in every industry. Needless to say, there are common ones, and there are also many rare ones. In the past, there were police special forces who were enthusiastic, and later there were special agents who were obsessed. What professions will appear in the future? I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon, Mr. Luo Ning. When I came to Nick Fury's office, a few rays of sunlight shone in, making the room very bright. Ronan sat across from Nick Fury, with Coulson standing aside. "Before interrogating me, I hope you can pour me a cup of tea, my throat is smoking." Luo Ning slammed his mouth. "This is not an interrogation, but an exchange." Nick Fury winked, and Coulson went there reluctantly. No matter where he is, this guy always looks arrogant, and even coming to S.H.I.E.L.D. A fight with Tony. Who are they? All of them looked like uncles, but the director gave enough face. "Coulson broke into my office. Didn't he arrest me for interrogation? Could it be possible to invite me to visit S.H.I.E.L.D.? Luo Ning said angrily. "I hope you can understand that I don't want to trouble you, but last time we just finished talking face to face, that happened last night, why?" Nick Fury spread his black hands, expressing his confusion. "I also want to ask why. Someone must be targeting me." Luo Ning said. "So were you there last night?" "How could I be there?" As soon as Luo Ning finished speaking, he realized the problem. Nearly 100 vehicles were destroyed last night, including his orange Lamborghini. This is not the key is that the license plate is missing. Sure enough, Nick Fury took out a tattered, to be precise, undeservedly twisted license plate, and the number on it could still be seen clearly. "How do you explain that?" "It's my driver Thomas, that guy loves to drive around in my car." Ronan had no choice but to answer in this way, but if S.H.I.E.L.D. also captured Thomas, it would be revealed. On the other side at this time, Thomas, who was basking in the sun on the beach, sneezed for no reason, twisted his nose and looked up at the sky. "Which fool is talking about me behind my back again?" "Mr. Ronan." Nick Fury stood up suddenly, put his hands on the desk, and said loudly, "I hope you can answer truthfully. This is S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. will eradicate all threats, including those that have occurred or may occur. The world is not safe anymore. I need a team that can deal with these threats instead of watching one threat after another be born. To be honest, you already have the conditions to pose a threat to the world, so you better think it through before you speak." Luo Ning smiled. "I'm just a filmmaker, what do you want me to say?" Immediately he also put on a straight face and said, "Even if I have an unusual relationship with Soldier 76. Soldier 76 robbed your family money. Or did you burn, kill, rape, or do something else that threatens the world? It is worthy of the secretary. Are you so worried? If you have time, why don't you think about why the recent situation is so frequent? On the surface, it is your S.H.I.E.L.D. that solves all the troubles, but in fact, Have you considered the root cause of the disaster, the internal composition of S.H.I.E.L.D.? It's all said and done. If Nick Fury can understand it, it's a blessing for S.H.I.E.L.D. If he can't understand it, or if he firmly believes that S.H.I.E.L.D's internal composition is fine, then continue to be Hydra's puppet. As the director, he can't even take care of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he manages this and that all day long. Do you really think he's the savior of the world? Use these efforts to investigate the internal members of S.H.I.E.L.D., and most of the troubles will be gone. As for this, anyway, it is impossible for him to help S.H.I.E.L.D. to solve internal problems. His kindness has not overflowed to such an extent, and he doesn't want to be targeted by Hydra so early. With his current strength, he is not enough to fight Hydra. The most important thing is that there are too many strongholds of Hydra, and there will be others if you take one off, just like the slogan of Hydra, cut off one head and grow two more. There are too many people following Hydra, so many that it is unimaginable, so before you are sure, you must not fight against Hydra, otherwise you will not even be able to sleep well. Nick Fury was speechless, the expression on his face froze for a long time, and finally sat down weakly. After a long silence, suddenly, the door was knocked open. A masked man held Agent Coulson hostage and walked in slowly, followed by several masked men, pointing guns at them. Luo Ning turned his head to look. Bad, it felt like a myocardial infarction. In the recurved wing building of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, a group of masked gangsters appeared in Nick Fury's office and took Agent Coulson hostage, Luo Ning had nothing to say, and several masked gangsters rushed in suddenly, which really shocked him, and he realized that things were not that simple after he calmed down. Even cats and dogs can sneak into S.H.I.E.L.D. these days. Not to mention how perfect the security system of S.H.I.E.L.D. is, ordinary gangsters can't even beat the agents along the way, so how could they come to the director's office so easily? What's even more ridiculous is that Phil Coulson, a level 8 agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., was held hostage. Under normal circumstances, even if he was held hostage, Coulson would be able to escape safely. How could a level 8 agent not even have this ability? So Luo Ning saw through Nick Fury's fake tricks at a glance. It was okay to bluff others, but it was too tender to deceive him. Throw away the weapon, quick. One of the masked men said to Nick Fury, then looked at Ronan, and you are the same. Luo Ning touched his body and said that he was not carrying any weapons. No matter what other people did, they always carried a pistol when going out, but he was awesome. The only thing he had to bring when going out was his mobile phone, and he didn't even bother to bring his wallet. Those gangsters looked at Luo Ning with the eyes of a fool. Isn't this arrogant? With a net worth of hundreds of billions, he doesn't even bring a gun when he goes out. If you don't have a gun, at least a knife, right? Can you respect the terrorists? Terrorists don't want to lose face. Nick Fury reluctantly removed the gun from his body, and then asked with a dark face, what are you going to do? If you want money, just say it. If you want girls, I'm afraid no one here can satisfy you. Puff. Luo Ning almost laughed. What about playing? Fortunately, he has excellent acting skills, and he always looks like he is dying of fear, but he is happy in his heart. If you want money and girls, we will go all the way to S.H.I.E.L.D. Catch them for me. A masked bald man waved his hand, and two people went to tie their hands with ropes. Nick Fury struggled symbolically, and Ronan also pretended to struggle. Be honest, the masked man who tied the rope to him scolded. With his hands tied tightly, Luo Ning cried, I am the president of Overwatch Pictures, I can give you whatever you want, as long as you don't hurt me. Seeing that they did not respond, Luo Ning said, how about $8,000 million? In silence. 100 million. 2 billion. It's really not good, can I give up the company to you? Those masked people laughed together, and then the bald boss snorted and said, if I hadn't been entrusted, maybe I would really agree, but to be honest, someone wants your life. Ah, don't, I'm in the prime of my life, I'm a scholar, I haven't had time to reprimand Fang Chu, the most important thing is, I'm still a baby, I don't even know what it's like to be a woman, please don't kill me. You should agree to whatever wishes you have before you die, otherwise I will die with regret. Luo Ning's acting skills exploded, and his body trembled slightly. In fact, he was thinking about the horror movies he had watched before, such as The Midnight Bell and The Curse. Looking back, it made people shudder, and his expression was even more terrifying. So we're going to find you a woman to have fun with. Good idea, so go ahead and fantasize. The bald man finished speaking lightly, and then looked at Nick Fury and Coulson. Don't be complacent, the commission I accepted is not just to kill Ronan, but also you, Director Fury, and your right-hand man, Director Fury, Agent Coulson. It starts with you. He aimed his gun at Coulson, and Coulson seemed to be struggling desperately, but he still couldn't break free from the hold of the two. No, Nick Fury yelled. Boom, the gunshot rang out, and Coulson fell down in panic, with a smear of red on his chest. The props are very realistic, comparable to the set. Although he thought so in his heart, Luo Ning's expression was very panicked. His eyes were as big as a bull's eye, and his mouth was as big as the mouth of the abyss. It's up to you, Chief Fury. Your life is too valuable. Many people pay a high price for your life. This shot will mean countless prosperity and wealth to us. See, my hand all trembling. The bald man was talking and laughing while pressing his pistol to Nick Fury's chest. Nick Fury glared at him angrily. If you dare to kill me, be prepared to sleep and eat. The man chuckled disdainfully. I'm ready. With a bang, Nick Fury also fell down. Luo Ning nodded secretly. As expected of a veteran agent, his acting skills are sharp, even a filmmaker like him is ashamed. If Nick Fury really died like this, it would be fun. I guess the world will be in chaos. Although he doesn't like Nick Fury personally, the role of the latter is quite big. Except for him, the Marvel world, it's hard to find another person who can convince superheroes. If no one is in charge of the superheroes will be in a state of disunity and do their own thing, and then the trouble will be big. It's your turn to come down, respected Mr. Luo Ning. The bald man turned to look at him, slowly raised his arm, and put the gun directly on his forehead. To be honest, being shot to the forehead was still very scary. Luo Ning, who was originally relaxed, couldn't help but tense up, and his heart beat faster. Kill me, you will be hunted down by Overwatch fans. Luo Ning said in a panic. It's really interesting for you to talk, but you will inevitably die in the end. The bald man said unhurriedly, that person specifically told me that he would open a ladle for you. How much do you think that person hates you? If I knew who it was, I would definitely make his head green. Luo Ning really wanted to say that he wanted to kill him quickly, but when he came to him, he would grind and haw, as if he couldn't bear to kill him. He knew what these people were waiting for. As long as he transformed, he would fall into Nick Fury's trap. The script is supposed to be like this. He doesn't want to die, so he turns to resist. Then Nick Fury and Coulson will get up and smile triumphantly, and he will be put under house arrest. Absolutely. Do you know what it's like to be pierced by a bullet in the head? The bald man showed a vicious look in his eyes. If I knew, you might be dead now. Luo Ning pretended to be panicked. So if you don't want to be haunted by evil spirits, put down your gun. I'll give you 3 times as much as they give you. Sorry, there are rules in our business, so goodbye. The bald man shook his hand, pressed his head against the wall with the gun, and pulled the trigger. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.